Chapter 23-22. Yin Tong could clearly feel that Jun Wuya was absent-minded. Yin Tong could feel that Jun Wuya was looking down on him, which made Yin Tong infuriated. Yin Tong could clearly feel that Jun Wuya was absent-minded. Yin Tong could feel that Jun Wuya was looking down on him, which made Yin Tong infuriated. As an evil sovereign, Yin Tong couldn't remember how long it had been since someone dared to look down on him. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that even the heavenly ancestors didn't dare to look down on him. Jun Wuya said indifferently after hearing Yin Tong's words, "Forget it. Although it will be troublesome, I will make you stay here forever. You should be the strongest among them. Killing you will save me a lot of trouble in the future." Jun Wuya's eyes were filled with killing intent as he spoke. Yin Tong was so angry that he laughed when he heard that Jun Wuya was going to kill him on the spot. Good. It has been a long time since I met such an arrogant person. Today, I want to see how you are going to kill me. Yin Tong immediately threw a punch at Jun Wuya. Jun Wuya casually threw out a palm. Yin Tong's attack was easily blocked by Jun Wuya. However, Yin Tong was not surprised at all. He already knew that Jun Wuya was very strong from Violet Snake. Since Violet Snake had praised Jun Wuya, it was not surprising that Jun Wuya was able to block his punch. A wisp of black flame appeared between Yin Tong and Jun Wuya. Immediately, wisps of black flame also appeared around Jun Wuya. Black flames burning the heavens. Yin Tong shouted in a low voice. Then, the black flames surrounding Jun Wuya burned fiercely and engulfed Jun Wuya. The reason why Yin Tong was called Yin Tong was because his eyes were capable of summoning hellfire, or in other words, black flames. The black flame's lethality was obviously much higher than ordinary flames. Even an Emperor Realm Master would not dare to underestimate it. Yin Tong did not move, but the black flame had already completely engulfed Jun Wuya. However, just as the black flames were burning fiercely, a lotus appeared under Jun Wuya's feet out of thin air. The black flames couldn't even get close to Jun Wuya, let alone cause any harm to him. Incarnation of the three pure ones. Then, two identical Jun Wuya slowly appeared on both sides of Jun Wuya. Seeing Jun Wuya use the three pure ones incarnation, Yin Tong's eyes flickered. Thinking back to the war between the righteous and corrupt paths, the sovereign who had comprehended the three pure ones incarnation had given the corrupt path a headache. Even Violet Snake had been defeated by that sovereign. Although it had been many years, seeing the three pure ones incarnation again made Yin Tong's heart tighten. However, Yin Tong was not Violet Snake. Although the three pure ones incarnation was difficult for Violet Snake to deal with, it was still not enough to defeat Yin Tong. After a short while, Yin Tong sneered. If the three pure ones incarnation is your trump card, then it's a pity that I am not Violet Snake. I'm not afraid of the three pure ones incarnation. Saying that, Yin Tong's eyes were completely occupied by the black flames. His eyes seemed to have turned into flames, burning fiercely. At the same time, Yin Tong shouted in a low voice, "Flame World." Instantly, countless Yin Tong appeared in the surroundings. These Yin Tong were not afterimages, but formed by the black flames. There were thousands of them, and they looked extremely terrifying. Moreover, what was even more shocking was that these Yin Tong were exuding an aura. Obviously, these thousands of Yin Tong had real offensive power and were not simply used to confuse the opponent. The Flame World was Yin Tong's special skill. It was also the reason why he was able to become one of the three evil sovereigns of the evil way. With this skill, Yin Tong was not too afraid of Jun Wuya's three pure ones incarnation. Looking at the Flame World, Jun Wuya nodded slightly and said, "It is indeed a good skill. However, as you said, this is not enough." Saying that, the three Jun Wuya sat down cross-legged at the same time, and three flowers appeared under them. At the same time, the sky was covered with dark clouds, and countless black heavenly lightning struck down. Jun Wuya's black lightning was not inferior to Yin Tong's black flames in terms of offensive power. In fact, it was even more powerful. As the black lightning continued to fall, Yin Tong's doppelgangers were constantly being destroyed. One by one, the incarnations were shattered under Jun Wuya's black lightning. However, Yin Tong was not nervous at all, because as the incarnations were shattered, new incarnations quickly appeared. The number of incarnations did not decrease because of Jun Wuya's attack. On the contrary, the number of incarnations increased from thousands to tens of thousands. With so many clones, not to mention their battle prowess, just their appearance alone was enough to frighten people. Their might was indeed enough to make people tremble in fear. Ignoring the black lightning in the sky, the tens of thousands of incarnations of Yin Tong attacked Jun Wuya. Jun Wuya was still calm in the face of such a terrifying attack. The three Jun Wuya started to form seals at the same time and said faintly, "Tens of thousands of incarnations. The power is indeed not bad. However, it is a pity that you are too obsessed with the appearance and forgot the essence." As Jun Wuya spoke, the petals of the black lotus scattered. At the same time, Jun Wuya shouted in a low voice, "Lotus kill." As she spoke, the lotus petals that were originally fluttering in the wind seemed to have transformed into sharp knives. They carried a terrifying power as they shot towards Yin Tong. Under Jun Wuya's attack, the incarnations of Yin Tong were quickly destroyed. The petals seemed to be endless, covering the sky and the sun. The attack of each petal was extremely powerful. At least, it was effortless to deal with Yin Tong's incarnations. As long as they were hit, they would be shattered. In the blink of an eye, more than half of Yin Tong's incarnations were destroyed. Moreover, Jun Wuya showed no signs of stopping his attack. It was not as easy as it was at the beginning. At this time, Yin Tong, who was hiding among the incarnations, had a serious look in his eyes. Jun Wuya's methods were indeed extraordinary. Facing his flame world, he had successfully destroyed it without any effort. It should be known that other than the evil god, there was no other person who could destroy his flame world so easily. However, Jun Wuya had succeeded. Just as Yin Tong was secretly shocked, Jun Wuya suddenly moved. The three Jun Wuya moved almost at the same time and said in unison, "Found you." As they spoke, the three Jun Wuya directly attacked Yin Tong's incarnation. Obviously, they had found Yin Tong's incarnation, begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. Chapter 23:23. After successfully locating Yin Tong's real body, Jun Wuya took a step forward and appeared in front of him in an instant. Yin Tong's expression changed abruptly, but before he could think further, Jun Wuya had already struck him with his palm. After successfully locating Yin Tong's real body, Jun Wuya took a step forward and appeared in front of him in an instant. Yin Tong's expression changed abruptly, but before he could think further, Jun Wuya had already struck him with his palm. A huge spiritual energy palm pressed down on Yin Tong like a mountain. In the face of Jun Wuya's attack, Yin Tong's expression turned solemn. He wanted to dodge, but unfortunately, with the three Pure One's incarnations present, Yin Tong could not do so. He could only take a head-on. The black flames in Yin Tong's eyes burned fiercely. In an instant, a black flame defense formed in front of Yin Tong. The spiritual energy palm bombarded the black flames. The two collided fiercely and then canceled each other out. However, although Yin Tong blocked Jun Wuya's attack, he was completely besieged by Jun Wuya. The three Jun Wuya did not give Yin Tong the slightest chance to breathe. They besieged Yin Tong, and Yin Tong instantly fell into a disadvantageous position. Jun Wuya did not only have the three Pure One's incarnations. In addition, Jun Wuya had many other means, which were impossible to guard against. As the pressure increased, Jun Wuya's aura continued to rise. Soon, it reached the limit of the complete earthly venerable realm. However, this was not the end. Suddenly, Jun Wuya's aura seemed to have undergone a qualitative change. The originally terrifying aura quickly converged. For a moment, Jun Wuya gave off a simple and unadorned feeling. On the surface, Jun Wuya didn't seem as terrifying as before. However, at this moment, Yin Tong's eyes flashed with a hint of fear as he faced Jun Wuya. That's right, she was terrified. Looking at Jun Wuya, Yin Tong asked in a daze, "Have you really surpassed the Emperor realm?" Although Jun Wuya's aura was restrained, it didn't mean that he had become weak. On the contrary, the current Jun Wuya made Yin Tong involuntarily feel fear. At this moment, Jun Wuya's entire being seemed to have become one with himself, detached from the world. Although there was no terrifying aura leaking out, no one could find the slightest flaw in him. In the face of Yin Tong's shock, Jun Wuya faintly said, "It's only half a step." Without waiting for Yin Tong's reply, Jun Wuya took a step forward and instantly appeared in front of Yin Tong. He casually pointed his finger, and a green light flashed. In the face of Jun Wuya's finger, Yin Tong's expression turned solemn. She stretched out her hand to block, but when the two collided, Yin Tong was sent flying. She couldn't block it. She couldn't block Jun Wuya's attack at all. Feeling the sharp pain in her arm, Yin Tong's expression became increasingly gloomy. If Yin Tong still had a trace of doubt about Purple Snake's evaluation of Jun Wuya before, then now, Yin Tong obviously didn't have the slightest doubt. Jun Wuya's strength was indeed boundless. In Yin Tong's opinion, only Lord Demon God could fight against Jun Wuya. The fighting spirit in her heart was quickly extinguished. Yin Tong didn't doubt that if they fought to the death, Jun Wuya would definitely have the ability to kill her. Immediately, Yin Tong's heart was filled with fear. In response, Jun Wuya said indifferently, "Do you think you can escape?" Since he had made up his mind to keep Yin Tong here, Jun Wuya naturally wouldn't let him go so easily. After saying that, Jun Wuya didn't give up. Once again, he launched a fierce attack on Yin Tong. Seeing that Jun Wuya was completely suppressing Yin Tong, the other sovereigns in the Great Thousand World not far away were also shocked. When Jun Wuya was in the Great Thousand World, he rarely fought, and even if he did, he wouldn't use his full strength. Therefore, it could be said that the sovereigns in the Great Thousand World didn't understand Jun Wuya's true strength. However, at this moment, Jun Wuya didn't hold back, and the strength he displayed at this time shocked the sovereigns. He's broken through to the sovereign realm. Tenzu was the first to notice Jun Wuya's change. As Tenzu in the Great Thousand World, he naturally knew many secrets that others didn't know. Therefore, at this moment, when he felt the aura emitted by Jun Wuya, Tenzu couldn't help but say. However, soon, Tenzu shook his head. Jun Wuya probably hadn't really broken through to the sovereign realm. He had only taken half a step. Even so, this was terrifying enough. At least, compared to Jun Wuya, the other sovereigns were obviously not enough. Everyone was shocked in their hearts, and the one who felt the most upset was undoubtedly Tao Ming. Everyone knew about the relationship between Hatian Gate and Swords Gate, and there was basically no possibility of reconciliation. But now, Jun Wuya had burst out with such a terrifying battle prowess, which made Tao Ming feel shocked and terrified at the same time. If Jun Wuya had shown such strength at the beginning, Tao Ming would have been killed, because in terms of strength, Tao Ming was not as strong as Yin Tong. At this moment, Yin Tong was almost unable to fight back in the hands of Jun Wuya, let alone Tao Ming. Damn it! Tao Ming cursed and looked at Jun Wuya with complicated feelings. At the same time, he felt despair for the future of the Katian sect. With such strength, Tao Ming knew very well that if Jun Wuya was determined to destroy the Katian sect, then the Katian sect would basically have no way to survive, because Tao Ming knew that he couldn't stop Jun Wuya at all. He once thought that he could compete with Jun Wuya, and even if he couldn't defeat him, the gap between them wouldn't be too big. But now, it seemed that this idea was simply a joke. Unaware of the shock in the hearts of the sovereigns, Jun Wuya only had one thought at this time, and that was to kill Yin Tong on the spot. Seeing that Jun Wuya was determined to kill him, Yin Tong's heart became heavier and heavier. In the end, Yin Tong had no choice but to use his last life-saving means. Yin Tong wouldn't use this life-saving means easily because the price was too high, but now he had no choice. If he didn't use this last life-saving means, he was afraid that he would really die here today. Jun Wuya, This king will remember today's matter. Yin Tong looked at Jun Wuya and shouted coldly. As soon as his voice fell, 2 lines of blood flowed out from his eyes. It looked extremely terrifying, and the black flames in his eyes became more and more vigorous. At the same time, the space around Yin Tong began to distort. Along with the distortion of space, Yin Tong's whole body seemed to merge into the space, and his figure became illusory. Yin Xing. With a low shout, the space where Yin Tong was directly formed a vortex, and soon, Yin Tong's figure disappeared. As for Jun Wuya's attack, it directly hit the air, and he couldn't hit Yin Tong at all. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendation. End of chapter. Chapter 23-24. Even Jun Wuya could not react to Yin Tong's flame travel technique. It was beyond Jun Wuya's expectations that there was such a wonderful escape technique in this world. Jun Wuya could not react to Yin Tong's flame travel technique. It was beyond Jun Wuya's expectations that there was such a wonderful escape technique in this world. Originally, if Yin Tong had not chosen to escape, or if he did not have such a wonderful escape technique like Yin Xing, Jun Wuya had full confidence that he could directly kill him here. Unfortunately, in the end, Yin Tong still managed to escape. Although it was not difficult for Jun Wuya to see that Yin Tong must have paid a great price to use the flame travel technique, at least he managed to keep his life. Jun Wuya sighed helplessly and laughed self-deprecatingly. It seems that this old man was careless. How can a person like Yin Tong not have some extraordinary techniques that ordinary people do not have? It was just a pity that he missed the opportunity to kill Yin Tong. After all, Yin Tong had already escaped. What was the point of talking about it now? He quickly adjusted his state of mind. Following Yin Tong's escape, Zixi and the other evil sovereigns also left the battle and escaped without any hesitation. Before the evil sovereigns escaped, they naturally ordered the evil path cultivators to retreat. In an instant, the battle was over. The evil path cultivators around the spatial passage retreated into the depths of the flame wind realm. In this way, the battle between the two sides should have ended with the Great Thousand World side winning. However, this was only the first battle. Although they had lost, it did not cause any fatal damage to the evil path cultivators. However, being able to win the first battle was a great boost to the morale of the Great Thousand World side. As the biggest contributor to this battle, Jun Wuya was naturally surrounded by the sovereigns. Other than Dao Xiong and Luo Xing, the others were shocked by Jun Wuya's combat strength. Even Jun Wuya's attitude changed slightly. Tenzo looked at Jun Wuya and said with a smile, "Brother Wuya, you were really surprising. You hid your strength so well." Unknowingly, a trace of fear and respect for Jun Wuya grew in Tenzu's heart. It cannot be helped. Although Tenzu's status was high, Jun Wuya's strength, to put it bluntly, could completely disregard Tenzu. If the sovereigns and Tenzu were on equal footing, then Jun Wuya was an existence above Tenzu. He did not need to care about the Great Thousand Worlds' heavenly Tao, because Jun Wuya had the ability to do so. Hearing the Heaven Race's words, the other sovereigns also spoke up. "That's right, Brother Wuya. You're too mean. After so long, we still don't know your strength. Tell us honestly, have you already broken through to the Emperor realm?" Faced with the repeated questions of the sovereigns, Jun Wuya could only smile bitterly. "Just half a step. I haven't broken through to the Emperor realm." Since everyone had seen his true strength with their own eyes, Jun Wuya simply told the truth. However, even if Jun Wuya had not truly broken through to the Emperor realm, this half a step left all the sovereigns present dumbfounded. It couldn't be helped. When one reached the Emperor realm, even the slightest improvement was extremely difficult, let alone taking half a step. This half-step gap could not be underestimated at all. Not only the sovereigns, but even Xiao Chun and the other monstrous geniuses also looked at Jun Wuya at this time. Dao Ju even said excitedly, "Brother Xiao Chun, your honored master is so strong." Dao Ju was also shocked by Jun Wuya's strength, but Xiao Chun was a little speechless. Although he was Jun Wuya's disciple, Xiao Chun did not know Jun Wuya's true strength. Therefore, when facing Jun Wuya at this time, Xiao Chun's heart was the same as Dao Ju's. Xiao Chun smiled and did not reply, but Dao Ju beside him said to himself, "Brother Xiao Chun, since your honored master is so strong, why didn't he directly destroy the heaven-merging sect? With the strength Jun Wuya had shown, it should not be too difficult to kill Tao Ming." It could even be said that if Tao Ming did not have Yin Tong's life-saving means, he might not even have a chance to escape in front of Jun Wuya. Xiao Chun did not know why Jun Wuya did not kill Tao Ming, so he naturally could not answer Dao Ju's question. Surrounded by the crowd, Jun Wuya smiled bitterly. Then, the people of the major forces arrived at the Flame Wind Realm through the space passage and directly set up camp at the entrance of the Flame Wind Realm. Because they were in the starry sky, they simply stayed on the starships. Fortunately, there were many starships, tens of thousands of them, so it was not crowded with so many people. In the largest starship, the sovereigns and Xiao Chun were also discussing the next strategy. According to everyone's opinion, the space passage must be in their hands. Therefore, the sovereigns did not have the slightest objection and set up their base camp at the space passage. With the surroundings of the space passage as a foothold, this time they would clean up the evil warriors in the Flame Wind Realm. Because of the strength Jun Wuya had shown, the sovereigns were full of confidence. From today's battle, it was not difficult to see that the evil masters on the evil warriors' side were no match for Jun Wuya. Although it was a pity that they did not kill Yin Tong today, Jun Wuya had the ability to kill those evil masters in the future. As long as Jun Wuya could kill even one evil master, the situation of the battle could be changed. At that time, the scales of victory would tilt towards the Great Thousand World. Everyone was very excited, and at the same time, they were full of confidence, except for one person, and that was Tao Ming. Since the end of the battle, Tao Ming had not said a word. He sat there with a gloomy face and did not interrupt. Of course, he did not object either. The sovereigns could naturally guess some of the changes in Tao Ming. Obviously, it was because of Jun Wuya, because the stronger Jun Wuya was, the more panicked Tao Ming became. Although the Great Thousand World was now united to fight against the evil warriors, once the battle between the good and evil ended, the battle between the Sword Sect and the Heavenly Sect would definitely break out again. In this way, with Jun Wuya's strength, could Tao Ming stop him? It was impossible for Tao Ming to stop Jun Wuya. The sovereigns were also very clear that once the battle between the good and evil ended and the Great Thousand World won, the doomsday of the Heavenly Sect would probably come. No one was optimistic about the Heavenly Sect because there was no one in the Heavenly Sect who could contend with Jun Wuya. When Tao Ming died, the Heavenly Sect would naturally scatter. Please add this to your collection, monthly vote, recommendation. End of this chapter. Chapter 23-25. Tao Ming did not say a word, but one could tell from his expression that he was in a bad mood. While the sovereigns were discussing their next strategy, Zi Shi and the other evil sovereigns, who had retreated to the depths of the Flame Wind Realm, gathered in the great hall of the Wood Spirit Sect. Tao Ming did not say a word, but one could tell from his expression that he was in a bad mood. While the sovereigns were discussing their next strategy, Zi Shi and the other evil sovereigns, who had retreated to the depths of the Flame Wind Realm, gathered in the great hall of the Wood Spirit Sect. However, at this moment, the atmosphere within the large hall was a little solemn. All the evil sovereigns involuntarily looked towards the pale-faced Yin Tong. Yin Tong had almost died in the battle just now. If it were not for Yin Xing's life-saving means, he probably would not have been able to return. Thinking of Jun Wuya, the evil sovereign's expressions became incomparably heavy. With such power, who in the corrupt path would be able to stop him? Even Yin Tong had almost died. The others were definitely not Jun Wuya's match. Even Tao Ming was probably wishful thinking. No one said a word. The great hall was so silent that one could hear a pin drop. Sensing that the atmosphere was becoming more and more oppressive, and that everyone's morale had been greatly affected, the seriously injured Yin Tong forced a smile and said, "As everyone can see, Jun Wuya's strength is indeed extremely powerful. It can be said that he has already surpassed the sovereign realm. Although he has not truly broken through to the sovereign realm, he has successfully taken half a step. None of us here is his match. Although there was a smile on his face, it was unknown whether it was because of his serious injuries, but his smile gave off a forced feeling. Hearing his words, the evil sovereign's originally ugly expressions became even uglier. Yin Tong's gaze swept across everyone. Seeing this, he paused for a moment before continuing. However, although we are not Jun Wuya's match, the outcome of this battle is still very clear. Lord Evil God's resurrection is imminent. As long as we can resurrect Lord Evil God will naturally kill Jun Wuya personally. At this moment, Yin Tong had no choice but to admit that Purple Snake's suggestion to revive Lord Evil God at all costs was indeed a wise move. It was also because the evil sovereigns had listened to the Purple Snake's suggestion and had already begun to revive the Lord Evil God. This gave everyone a glimmer of hope. Indeed, after hearing Yin Tong's words, anticipation flashed across the eyes of the evil sovereigns, who originally had ugly expressions on their faces. That's right, none of them were a match for Jun Wuya, but Lord Evil God could. With Lord Evil God's strength, he could definitely kill Jun Wuya. Fortunately, everyone listened to the Purple Snake's words and revived the Lord Evil God. This gave them a glimmer of hope. The smile on Yin Tong's face grew increasingly brilliant when he saw that the expressions of everyone present had turned for the better. Therefore, we don't have to be so disheartened. However, before Lord Evil God's resurrection, we can't let our guard down. We have to do our best to delay the attack of the Great Thousand World to ensure that Lord Evil God's resurrection is successful. After slaughtering all the living beings in the Flaming Wind World, Lord Evil God was currently being revived in the Sealed Land. However, this process would take time. According to estimates, it would take about half a month. During this half a month, Yin Tong's plan was to delay the attack of the Great Thousand World. Before Lord Evil God's resurrection, they would not engage in a head-on clash with the Great Thousand World. Everything would be decided after Lord Evil God's resurrection. If they were to engage in a head-on battle with the Great Thousand World now, the evil path would definitely be at a disadvantage. This was something that all the evil sovereigns present were very clear about. This was because no one was a match for Jun Wuya. Furthermore, Yin Tong was now seriously injured, and it would be difficult for him to recover in a short period of time. If someone else were to deal with Jun Wuya, they would not be as strong as Yin Tong. Therefore, stalling for time was the best method for the evil path. None of the evil sovereigns present objected to Yin Tong's words. This was because they all knew that Yin Tong's decision was absolutely correct. Seeing that everyone had nodded in agreement after listening to his words, Yin Tong was silent for a moment before he said faintly, "Since that's the case, let's continue with the Great Thousand World. In addition, we should speed up the pace of Lord Evil God's resurrection. At the same time, we have to closely monitor the movements of the Great Thousand World. If there are any abnormalities, we have to report them immediately." After saying this, Yin Tong's face revealed a trace of exhaustion. He did not have much energy now, and had to go into seclusion to recuperate as soon as possible. Although he had successfully escaped from Jun Wuya by using Yin Xing, the price he had paid still made Yin Tong feel extremely pained. However, compared to his life, Yin Tong could still bear this price. It was a pity that Yin Xing could not use this method every time. Otherwise, even Yin Tong would not be able to bear it. At that time, he might not die at Jun Wuya's hands, but at his own hands. The evil path side had made arrangements for what was to come next. On the other side, the sovereigns of the Great Thousand World had also made the same arrangements. After a discussion, the sovereigns unanimously decided to use the Tianwu Road as a breakthrough point. No matter what, they had to take down the Tianwu Road first. After that, they would march on the Flame Wind World and slowly erode the strength of the evil path. Facing the strength of the evil path, it was obviously unrealistic to want to win or lose in a single battle. They could only eliminate the evil paths, strength step by step. Only then would they be able to settle the matter in one fell swoop. Their primary target was the Tianwu Road. However, at this time, another problem had arisen. Who will be the vanguard? At this time, Tao Ming, who had not spoken up until now, suddenly spoke up. I have no objection to everyone's decision, but this time, I feel that the sword sect contribution in being able to smoothly enter the flame wind world cannot go unnoticed. The sword sect has acted as the vanguard this time and fully displayed their strength. This is indeed something that all of us can learn from. Tao Ming actually took the initiative to praise the sword sect. It seemed like he was praising them, but upon hearing this, Xiao Chun frowned slightly. It was obvious that Tao Ming was not just praising the sword sect. He obviously had other motives. Looking calmly at Tao Ming turned a blind eye to Xiao Chen's gaze. Sweeping his gaze over the sovereigns present, Tao Ming paused for a moment before speaking slowly. The strength of the sword sect is obvious to all. This time, they have made a great contribution. Therefore, I feel that the sword sect should also be the vanguard when we attack the Tianwu Road. This way, our chances of success will naturally be higher. What do you all think? After saying this, Tao Ming's gaze fell on Jun Wuya. His gaze was complicated. There was fear, but at the same time, there was also hatred and unwillingness. Begging for your collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 23-26. Tao Ming proposed that the sword sect should still be the vanguard of the attack on the Tianwu Road. Upon hearing this, the expressions of the sovereigns present, as well as Xiao Chun and the others, changed. Tao Ming proposed that the sword sect should still be the vanguard of the attack on the Tianwu Road. Upon hearing this, the expressions of the sovereigns present, as well as Xiao Chun and the others, changed. There was an obvious chill in Xiao Chen's eyes. He had long guessed that Tao Ming was up to no good. Sure enough, this guy obviously wanted to use someone else to do his dirty work. Everyone present knew the consequences of being the vanguard. This time, the sword sect had been the vanguard, but their casualties were several times that of the other forces. After all, when fighting against the evil path, the vanguard naturally had to bear the brunt of the attack. On the other hand, the heavenly sect had not lost a single soldier in their attack on the Flame Wind Realm. As the rearguard, they did not participate in the battle at all. They had already been the vanguard once, but Tao Ming still wanted the sword sect to be the vanguard again. This was indeed a little unsightly. However, upon hearing Tao Ming's words, the sovereigns present fell into silence. For a moment, no one spoke up to oppose. The atmosphere seemed to have become a little strange because of Tao Ming's words, but soon, Xiao Chen also guessed the thoughts of the sovereigns. Jun Wuya's strength was great, which was indeed a good thing for the Great Thousand World, but in addition, it also made the sovereigns feel threatened. Not only Tao Ming, but the other sovereigns also felt it. After all, for so many years, the Great Thousand World had always been filled with heroes, but suddenly, Jun Wuya, whose strength could almost crush the other sovereigns, had appeared. What would the others think? Would Jun Wuya be the leader of the Great Thousand World in the future? They were all sovereigns, the top existences in the Great Thousand World. Naturally, they were unwilling to submit to Jun Wuya. To put it bluntly, no one wanted to see the situation of the Great Thousand World dominating the world. Therefore, even though everyone knew that the purpose of Tao Ming's suggestion was to weaken the strength of the sword sect, no one objected to it. Everyone knew that Jun Wuya was very strong, so weakening the strength of the sword sect was equivalent to restricting Jun Wuya. For various reasons, the sovereigns and Tao Ming stood on the same front. Facing Tao Ming's gaze, Jun Wuya's expression remained unchanged, and he even smiled. Does everyone agree with Tao Ming's suggestion? Jun Wuya said, and swept a glance at everyone. Facing Jun Wuya's gaze, no one dared to look back. After all, the sword sect had been the vanguard twice in a row. No matter how one put it, their table manners were a little too unsightly. Upon hearing Jun Wuya's words, Luo Xing spoke up. I don't agree. Since everyone is in an alliance, How can we let the same force be the vanguard twice in a row? Luo Xing had always admired Jun Wuya, so she naturally wasn't afraid of Jun Wuya dominating the world. Moreover, she was a woman. However, following his words, Tao Ming immediately retorted, "What's so unfair about this? Capable people do more work. Moreover, the strength of the sword sect is obvious to all. Letting the sword sect be the vanguard is obviously the wisest choice. Besides, now that the enemy is right in front of us, if we still scheme against each other, wouldn't we become a joke to the evil path?" Tao Ming's words could be said to be filled with righteousness, but everyone understood his purpose. The reason why Tao Ming was so insistent was that he had no choice. He felt like he was riding a tiger and couldn't get off. Unlike the others, Tao Ming didn't just feel threatened by the powerful Jun Wuya. It could even be said that he was terrified. Thus, in order to protect himself, Tao Ming had to do everything he could to weaken and limit the sword sect's strength and development. Tao Ming insisted on letting the sword sect be the vanguard. Other than Luo Xing, the others neither opposed nor supported this. They didn't oppose Tao Ming because they also wanted to weaken the sword sect and limit its development. Otherwise, the sword sect would dominate the world in the future. They didn't support this because they didn't want to offend Jun Wuya. After all, Jun Wuya's strength was there for all to see. Even the Sky Ancestor kept his head down and did not say a word. After Tao Ming finished speaking, the rest was up to Jun Wuya. At this moment, Jun Wuya actually looked at Xiao Chun and said, "Chen, you're the sword sect's sect master. You can decide for yourself." Jun Wuya actually gave the right to decide to Xiao Chun. Everyone present was stunned, including Xiao Chun. However, when Xiao Chun saw Jun Wuya's smiling expression, Xiao Chun knew that Jun Wuya clearly felt that it was troublesome, so he was unwilling to make this decision. Thus, he simply threw this hot potato to Xiao Chun. Xiao Chun knew Jun Wuya's temperament very well. He didn't care about fame, power, or status. If it weren't for him, Jun Wuya probably wouldn't have joined the sword sect and become the old ancestor of the sword sect. Jun Wuya thought it was troublesome. In this regard, Xiao Chun could only smile bitterly. However, there was nothing he could do. At this moment, under everyone's gaze, Xiao Chun could only brace himself and stand up, bow to the sovereigns, and then slowly speak. "Now that we are facing a great enemy, my sword sect is naturally unwilling to do anything to break the unity. Since everyone doesn't object to Senior Tao Ming's proposal, my sword sect can agree. However, there is one condition, and that is that the heavenly sect must also be the vanguard of the attack on the sword sect." From the reactions of the sovereigns present just now, Xiao Chun had already guessed what they were thinking. So, if he refused at this time, it would obviously offend everyone, and it would be extremely disadvantageous for the upcoming battle. Besides, if he offended everyone at this time, it would be tantamount to pushing the sovereigns and all the forces present to Tao Ming's side. At that time, the sword sect situation would become even more difficult. Since everyone chose to acquiesce because they were afraid of Jun Wuya's strength, then Xiao Chun would go with the flow and accept the task of being the vanguard. However, according to Xiao Chun's character, even if he had no choice, he wouldn't let go of the heavenly sect for nothing. Therefore, Xiao Chun made such a request. Hearing Xiao Chun's words, Tao Ming's expression immediately changed. "Xiao Chun, only one vanguard is enough. Why do we need two?" Tao Ming didn't expect Xiao Chun to make such a choice at all, but as soon as his voice fell, the other sovereigns also spoke up at this time. "It's not impossible to have two vanguards. After all, it's very important for us to take down the Tianwu Road. In this case, two vanguards can ensure that nothing goes wrong. I think Xiao Chun's proposal is good. I also think it's good. We can only succeed in this attack on the Tianwu Road. Therefore, I don't think there's a problem with the heavenly sect being the vanguard. Please add this to your collection, monthly votes, and recommendations." End of this chapter. Chapter 23-27. The sovereigns spoke one after another. This time, they clearly expressed their support for Xiao Chun's proposal. In response, Tao Ming's face was dark and gloomy to the extreme. The sovereigns spoke one after another. This time, they clearly expressed their support for Xiao Qian's proposal. In response, Tao Ming's face was dark and gloomy to the extreme. Xiao Qian had already guessed the reaction of the venerable sovereigns. First of all, he had agreed to be the vanguard here, so the venerable sovereigns could not say anything more. If they continued to oppose him, it would no longer be a matter of good manners. Secondly, the sovereigns originally wanted to weaken the strength of the sword sect. Since Xiao Qian had agreed to be the vanguard, it was not a problem to bring along the heavenly sect. After all, it was not their strength that would be lost. In this way, the sovereigns naturally could not object. Although the heavenly sect did not pose any threat, it did not matter to the sovereigns present that the heavenly sect's strength was weakened. Since it had nothing to do with them, what was wrong with them giving face to Xiao Qian? The other sovereigns spoke one after another in agreement. In the end, even though Tao Ming was extremely unwilling, he could only nod and agree. Like Xiao Qian, Tao Ming did not want to offend the public. In this way, the vanguard of the attack on the Tianwu Road would be the Sword Sect and the Heavenly Sect. Of course, the people in charge would naturally be the two sect masters, Xiao Qian and Yang Qian. As for Tao Ming and Jun Wuya, they would still be on the same side as the other sovereigns. They would only take action when Zi Shi and the other evil masters appeared. The meeting, which was full of schemes and ulterior motives, came to an end. After everyone had dispersed, Xiao Xiao and Xiao Qian looked at Xiao Qian. Xiao Xiao said with some displeasure, "These people are really too much. Even at this time, they still want to weaken the strength of the sword sect." Xiao Xiao could naturally guess what the sovereigns were thinking, but Xiao Qian didn't care much about it and smiled. It's normal. After all, no one wants to see the great thousand world dominate. But even so, we have to defeat the evil path first. If we lose, not only will the great thousand world fall into the hands of the evil path, but the entire great thousand world will also fall into the hands of the evil path. Xiao Qian snorted in dissatisfaction when he heard Xiao Qian's words. Jun Wuya's display of absolute strength boosted everyone's confidence, but at the same time, it also made many people wary. Xiao Xiao really felt injustice for Xiao Qian, but what could she do? Moreover, Xiao Qian could accept this outcome. Although the sword sect was once again the vanguard, didn't the heavenly sect also get dragged down by him? Besides, Xiao Qian already had a plan in mind for the next attack. Xiao Qian naturally couldn't just let them use the evil path to weaken the sword sect's strength. The sword sect was his own sect, and Xiao Qian certainly wouldn't just stand by and watch the disciples of the sword sect die in vain. Xiao Qian returned to his residence. When he returned to his starship, Xiao Xiao had already left, and Jun Wuya was waiting for him. Seeing that Xiao Qian had returned, Jun Wuya smiled and pointed to the praying mat beside him. "Sit." Xiao Qian didn't stand on ceremony and sat down beside Jun Wuya. Jun Wuya personally made a cup of tea for Xiao Qian and then said slowly, "You don't blame me?" Jun Wuya was obviously talking about what happened in the meeting just now. During the meeting, Jun Wuya didn't refute the emperors and instead pushed all the blame to Xiao Qian. Hearing this, Xiao Qian smiled indifferently. "I know Master's temperament, and I also know that if Master had objected in that situation just now, the other emperors would inevitably feel conflicted and think that Master was using his power to oppress others." Xiao Qian really didn't blame Jun Wuya. Even when Jun Wuya had been hiding his strength before, Xiao Qian didn't blame him at all. Hearing Xiao Qian's words, Jun Wuya also smiled and said, "With Master's strength, I can indeed kill Tao Ming and help you destroy the Coiling Heaven sect easily. But in that case, the Sword Sect will have one less whetstone. Remember, the Sword Sect's sect master is you, and the extent to which the Sword Sect can grow depends on you. A sect that succeeds easily is destined to not last long. Understand?" Jun Wuya said. Hearing this, Xiao Qian also understood what he meant and nodded, indicating that he understood. In fact, Jun Wuya didn't kill Tao Ming in order to leave the Coiling Heaven sect to temper the Sword Sect. However, Jun Wuya probably didn't expect Long Yuan's death. After all, no matter how strong Jun Wuya was, he wasn't a god and didn't have the ability to predict the future. After saying this, Jun Wuya finally looked solemnly at Xiao Chun and said, "Go ahead and do it. Master will be behind you no matter what." Xiao Chun understood Jun Wuya's character very well, and Jun Wuya also understood Xiao Chen's character very well. Xiao Chun was a person who absolutely refused to suffer losses. Even if he suffered losses, it was impossible for him to not do anything. Therefore, even though the sword sect was targeted by the other sovereigns in today's meeting, in Jun Wuya's opinion, it was obvious that Xiao Chun wouldn't obediently give in. He must already have some ideas in his mind. Hearing Jun Wuya's words, Xiao Chun also smiled and nodded. Master knows me best. Xiao Chun did indeed have a countermeasure, and this time he would definitely ruthlessly screw over the Coiling Heaven sect. While Xiao Chun and Jun Wuya were talking, on the other side, Tao Ming, who had also returned to his residence, was sitting together with his disciple, Yang Chun. Because the Coiling Heaven sect was in charge of bringing up the rear when they entered the Flaming Wind realm, Yang Chun didn't see Jun Wuya's massacre. Tao Ming didn't hide anything and truthfully told Yang Chun about Jun Wuya's true strength. Damn Jun Wuya, he deceived everyone. This old thing has been hiding his strength all this time. Previously, I always thought that even if I couldn't defeat Jun Wuya, I could at least contend with him. But now, it seems that I'm no match for Jun Wuya at all. If Jun Wuya really wants to kill me, I won't even have the chance to escape. Tao Ming didn't care about his face and spoke truthfully. At this time, if he still cared about his so-called face, then Tao Ming was really stupid. Jun Wuya's strength had exceeded everyone's expectations, so Tao Ming had to let Yang Chun have a new understanding of the sword sect. He couldn't have those thoughts anymore and had to change because Tao Ming was no match for Jun Wuya at all. Once the Coiling Heaven sect and the sword sect clashed again, Tao Ming wouldn't be able to stop Jun Wuya at all. He couldn't be like before. If he wanted to deal with the sword sect in the future, he had to change his method, because in terms of strength, the Coiling Heaven sect was obviously no match for the sword sect, especially when there was a huge gap in strength between the two sovereigns. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendation. Chapter 23-28. Hearing Tao Ming's curses, Yang Chen's expression was extremely interesting. All along, Yang Chen's goal had been to destroy the sword sect and kill Xiao Chun. In Yang Chen's heart, his hatred for the sword sect and Xiao Chun had already reached its peak. Hearing Tao Ming's curses, Yang Chen's expression was extremely interesting. All along, Yang Chen's goal had been to destroy the sword sect and kill Xiao Chun. In Yang Chen's heart, his hatred for the sword sect and Xiao Chun had already reached its peak. But now, Tao Ming was actually telling him that Jun Wuya had already taken a step out of the Emperor realm. Even Yang Chun wasn't a match for Jun Wuya. He didn't even have the ability to protect himself. Such news was no less than a bolt from the blue for Yang Chun. It made him feel like a deflated balloon. No matter what, he wanted to destroy the sword sect. Moreover, even if Yang Chun could let go of the hatred in his heart, what about Xiao Chun? Would Xiao Chun let go of the Coiling Heaven sect? Now that the evil path cultivators had appeared, Xiao Chun couldn't spare any time to deal with them. But once the evil path cultivators were dealt with, would Xiao Chun allow the Coiling Heaven sect to do as they pleased? Therefore, whether Yang Chun was willing or not, he had to become enemies with Xiao Chun because the two of them had long since lost the possibility of turning enemies into friends. Yang Chun was also cursing in his heart. But now, Jun Wuya was like a mountain pressing down on the Coiling Heaven sect's head. He could burn the Coiling Heaven sect to the ground at any time. After cursing, Tao Ming finally calmed down and a cold light flashed in his eyes. No matter what, the most important thing for us now is to constantly weaken the sword sect's strength and use the evil path cultivators to cripple and injure the sword sect. So this time, do you know what to do when we attack the Tianwu Road? The Heavenly Sect and the Sword Sect were also the vanguard when attacking the Tianwu continent. Hearing Tao Ming's words, Yang Chen nodded and said, "I know." Naturally, Yang Chen knew what to do. It would be best if he could use the evil Dao cultivators to kill Xiao Chun. That would be perfect, as long as Xiao Chun was gone. With Jun Wuya's personality, he probably wouldn't stay in the sword sect for too long. At that time, without Xiao Chun and Jun Wuya, what threat would the sword sect have? While the master and disciple were plotting against Xiao Chun, on the other side, Xiao Chun had already come up with a plan. The original plan was to attack the Tian Wu Road early tomorrow morning. As the vanguard, the sword sect and the heavenly sect were naturally the first to set off. They had to be the first to attack the Tian Wu Road. Early the next morning, the starships belonging to the heavenly sect and the sword sect slowly set off towards the Tian Wu Road. But what everyone didn't expect was that the sword sect only had 2 starships. On the heavenly sect side, Yang Chun had mobilized 20 starships, all of which were disciples of the heavenly sect. There were 70 to 80,000 people on them. On Xiao Chen's side, there were only 2 starships, and it didn't look like there were many people. Yang Chun naturally didn't agree with Xiao Chen's approach. He directly stopped Xiao Chen's starship and stood on the deck, looking at Xiao Chun and coldly shouting, "Xiao Chun, what do you mean? What do you mean?" Hearing this, Xiao Chun asked with a puzzled expression, "Don't play dumb. You and I are both the vanguard, but you only sent so few people. Do you think we are all fools?" Seeing this, Yang Chun immediately shouted coldly, "Xiao Chun only sent 2 starships, which was obviously perfunctory." It was no wonder that Yang Chun was so angry. Originally, they planned to use the evil path strength to weaken the sword sect, but Xiao Chun only sent so few people, so what else could they do? Following Yang Chen's words, the emperors who had been paying attention to the situation also had slightly darkened expressions. After all, Xiao Chen's actions were indeed a little excessive. Regardless of the reason why the sword sect was once again the vanguard this time, since they had already accepted this mission, for the sake of the overall situation, Xiao Chun shouldn't be so perfunctory. To put it bluntly, if only 2 starships were sent, it wouldn't make any difference whether the sword sect was the vanguard or not. The emperors were a little dissatisfied with Xiao Chen's approach, but soon Xiao Chun spoke up. "What an idiot. Do you think I'm doing this perfunctorily and putting on an act? Isn't that the case?" Yang Chen shouted. "Open your dog eyes and see clearly," Xiao Chen said. Following Xiao Chen's words, the experts of the sword sect on the starship joined forces with the sword sect. First, Song Xing and the other deputy sect leaders were all present. Next, the sword sect elders, and the 10 sword maniacs disciples were all present. It could be said that all the experts of the sword sect who were at the comprehension realm and above were all gathered here. Bringing all the experts of the sword sect who were at the comprehension realm and above. This way, although Xiao Chun only sent out 2 starships, and the number of people was just a mere 20,000, in terms of quality, it was far superior to the heavenly sect. This was because looking at the people Yang Chun brought, 80% of them were ordinary disciples of the heavenly sect. There were only 2 End Realm deputy sect leaders, and there weren't many Dao Realm and Comprehension Realm experts either. It could be said that Xiao Chun and Yang Chun were 2 extremes. Xiao Chun walked the path of the elite. Although he didn't have many people, his combat strength was definitely not to be underestimated. As for the heavenly sect, Yang Chun only brought ordinary disciples. Yang Chun didn't bring many true experts and elites of the heavenly sect. Looking at Yang Chen's constantly changing expression, Xiao Chun curled his lips and said, "Now I feel like you're doing this half-heartedly. Where are the experts of your heavenly sect? Why are there so few of them? Why aren't the others coming?" Xiao Chun could be said to have brought all the elites of the sword sect. As a result, the expressions of the sovereigns became much better. Although the sword sect didn't send many people this time, their quality was very high. In comparison, Yang Chun seemed to be doing this half-heartedly. After all, there weren't many experts of the heavenly sect. Regarding this, Yang Chun didn't know what to say. He could only coldly snort and then give the order to set off, heading towards the Tianwu continent. Looking at Yang Chen's back as he left, Xiao Chen's lips gradually curled into a cold smile. How could Xiao Chen not know what Yang Chen was thinking? However, this time, Yang Chen was probably going to be disappointed. He wanted to use the evil path's experts to weaken the strength of the sword sect, but who knew who would suffer in the end? Without wasting any time, Xiao Chun gave the order to set off. Soon, the two sects disappeared into the starry sky. Then, the experts of the Saber sect, Moon Palace, Heavenly Ean Tower, Heavenly Policy Palace, and other sects set off one after another, following closely behind the Heavenly Sect and Sword Sect. Little brother, what are you trying to do? You clearly know that they want to use the evil path's experts to weaken our strength. So why did you only bring so few people? Moreover, all of them are the elites of the Sword Sect. If the losses are too great, it will be a big blow to the Sword Sect. In the cabin, Longqing looked helplessly at Xiao Chun, begging for your collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 23-29. Everyone could see through Yang Chen's scheme. Not only did Xiao Chen not object to it, he even seemed to be unprepared. Not only did he only bring 20 to 30,000 people, they were all elites of the Sword Sect. None of them were below the comprehension realm. After all, these people could be said to be the pillars of the Sword Sect. If they died, then the Sword Sect will be finished. Yang Chun had given the order to set out without saying anything. It was obvious that he was overjoyed. Although Xiao Chun didn't bring many people, they were all elites. If he could kill them all on the Tianwu continent, then the Sword Sect would lose half its life. Logically speaking, Xiao Chun should be like Yang Chun and bring a few ordinary disciples. Because even if they died, it wouldn't affect the Sword Sect too much. At most, they could just recruit a new batch of disciples. Xiao Chun said indifferently when he heard Longqing's words. Second sister, you think that I should be like Yang Chun and bring only ordinary disciples. That way, we can avoid casualties in the Sword Sect, right? Is that wrong? Longqing said. Longqing's words did make sense. Moreover, an ordinary person would make the same choice when faced with such a situation. However, Xiao Chen was different. Xiao Chun shook his head. I admit that second sister's words make sense. But wouldn't we be sacrificing those ordinary disciples for nothing? Although they are at the bottom of the Sword Sect, don't you think it's disappointing to let them die for nothing? But by doing so, we can at least preserve the strength of the Sword Sect. Longqing didn't deny this, but she still insisted on her opinion. Even if the ordinary disciples were sacrificed for nothing, they could preserve the strength of the Sword Sect to the greatest extent. Longqing didn't feel that she was wrong in choosing the lesser of two evils. But as the sect master of the Sword Sect, I can't let them come even though I know they're going to die. Since they've joined the Sword Sect, then regardless of their strength, they're still my family. I won't let them die for nothing. Xiao Chun told Longqing and the others his thoughts. Moreover, Xiao Chun didn't hold back at all about what they needed to do next. In the beginning, they didn't understand Xiao Chen's actions. But after hearing Xiao Chen's words, Longqing and the others were stunned at first, but they quickly recovered. They smiled at Xiao Chun and said, Little brother, you've really become bad. I have no choice. I was forced to do this. This time, I'll make Yang Chun bleed. Xiao Chun didn't care about this at all. Longqing and the others all agreed with Xiao Chen's plan. They didn't think that Xiao Chun would be so evil, completely tricking Yang Chun. Yang Chun still didn't know that he had been tricked by Xiao Chun. At this moment, Yang Chun was indeed as Xiao Chun had thought. He was incomparably carefree. Haha, this Xiao Chun is simply an idiot. He actually brought all the elites of the Sword Sect. This time, if we can make all these people stay on the Tianwu Road, then the Sword Sect will be completely crippled. Yang Chun laughed loudly in the cabin. He originally thought that Xiao Chun would only send out ordinary disciples like him. But who would have thought that the people Xiao Chun brought were all elites of the Sword Sect, and their cultivations were all above the comprehension realm? It was as if he could already see the decline of the Sword Sect. Yang Chun felt incomparably comfortable. Seeing Yang Chun in such a good mood, the two vice sect masters of the Heavenly Sect also smiled. Indeed, Xiao Chun had given the Heavenly Sect a huge surprise this time. Both parties headed towards the Tianwu Road. Soon, the Tianwu Road was right in front of them. Although the Tianwu Road was almost destroyed due to the battle between Jun Wuya and Zi Shi, more than half of it still remained. The outline of the Tianwu Road could already be seen from afar. Standing on the deck, Yang Chun said with a smile, "We're here. We're almost at the graves of the sword sex experts. Let me go and discuss with Xiao Chen now." Ha! Yang Chen laughed excitedly. Then, he took the initiative to go to Xiao Chen's spaceship. Xiao Chen didn't make things difficult for him. He invited Yang Chen into the cabin, and the two sat opposite each other. Yang Chen said with a smile, "Xiao Chen, there was indeed some misunderstanding between our two sections. However, now that we're facing a great enemy, I still hope that we can put aside our misunderstandings and work together. After all, the evil path cultivators are our biggest enemy now." Yang Chen took the initiative to lower Xiao Chen's guard. In response, Xiao Chen also smiled and said, "You're right. Let's put our past grudges aside for now. Let's deal with the evil path cultivators first." "Good. Brother Xiao Chen is indeed reasonable. Come, let's toast to our cooperation." Hearing this, Yang Chen took the initiative to raise his cup. In response, Xiao Chen naturally didn't refuse. After the two drank their cups, Yang Chen finally went straight to the point. "Brother Xiao Chen, the Tianwu Road is already in sight. The next battle will be the first. I see that Brother Xiao Chen has brought the elites of the sword sect. Why don't Brother Xiao Chen take the lead while my heavenly sect provides support from the side? What do you think?" Yang Chen naturally hoped that Xiao Chen would take the lead. As for the heavenly sect providing support, it was simply too fake. Yang Chen couldn't wait for all the experts of the sword sect to die on the Tianwu Road. How could the heavenly sect provide support? Xiao Chen was also very clear about this. Therefore, when he heard Yang Chen's words, Xiao Chen immediately pretended to be angry and said, "Yang Chen, since we're going to work together, it's best that you don't use such underhanded methods. Let my sword sect take the lead. Do you think I'm a 3-year-old child? In my opinion, why don't we let your heavenly sect take the lead while my sword sect provides support from the side?" Xiao Chen pretended to be angry. Seeing this, Yang Chen also hurriedly smiled and said, "Brother Xiao Chen, please calm down. That's not what I meant." Then what do you mean?" "Yang Chen, don't you know that I've brought the elites of the sword sect this time? Our numbers are already small. If you let us take the lead, isn't that the same as sending ourselves to our deaths? After all, even a fierce tiger can't withstand a pack of wolves." Xiao Chen coldly snorted. Xiao Chen's face was filled with anger. Seeing this, Yang Chen sneered inwardly. From the beginning, Yang Chen had never thought of letting Xiao Chen take the lead because he knew that Xiao Chen wasn't a fool and wouldn't agree to take the initiative. At this moment, looking at the furious Xiao Chen, Yang Chen seemed to take a step back and said, "Since that's the case, Brother Xiao Chen, why don't our two sects take the lead? Originally, we were both the vanguard, so it doesn't make sense for us to take the lead and provide support. Since that's the case, why don't we take the lead and attack together? This way, no one will suffer a loss. What does Brother Xiao Chen think? Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations." Chapter 23:30. Yang Chen proposed that both sides attack together. Hearing this, Xiao Chen's expression improved a little, and he said, "In that case, let's do it this way." Yang Chen proposed that both sides attack together. Hearing this, Xiao Chen's expression improved a little, and he said, "In that case, let's do it this way." On the surface, Xiao Chen still seemed a little unhappy, but in his heart, Xiao Chen was already smiling. Both sides attacking together. This was Xiao Chen's plan from the beginning. Moreover, Xiao Chen was sure that Yang Chen would definitely agree. Now, Yang Chen actually took the initiative to propose, which was exactly what Xiao Chen wanted. Sharing the task of attacking together. This way, Yang Chen would completely fall into Xiao Chen's trap. Unfortunately, Yang Chen had no idea at this time. Seeing Xiao Chen nod in agreement, Yang Chen said with a smile, "Okay, then it's settled." After discussing with Xiao Chen, both sides agreed to launch the attack together when they arrived at the Tianwu Road. Then, Yang Chen said goodbye and returned to the Katian Sect starship. Looking at Yang Chen's back, Xiao Chun whispered softly with a smile, "This is called being too smart for your own good." Both of them had their own plans. Xiao Chun sneered in his heart, while Yang Chun, who had returned to his own starship, couldn't help but laugh out loud. Haha, it seems that I overestimated Xiao Chun. I didn't expect him to be so stupid. Haha. Yang Chen laughed heartily, while the two Katian sect vice sect masters next to him asked, "Sect master, why are you so happy?" Facing the two's inquiry, Yang Chen truthfully told the two about his conversation with Xiao Chun. In the end, Yang Chun said with a smile, "Don't you think that Xiao Chun is so stupid that he's cute?" This time, he brought all the elites of the sword sect, while the people we brought are all ordinary disciples. If we both take on the task of attacking together, even if the casualties are the same, our Katian sect will obviously have an advantage. Even if our casualties are greater, it won't matter. However, Xiao Chun is different. The people he brought are all the pillars of the sword sect. Even if one of them dies, it will be a great loss for the sword sect, haha. Yang Chun was overjoyed. The way he saw it, Xiao Chun was caught off guard and fell into his trap. Now, all he had to do was to keep an eye on the casualties of the sword gate. Hearing Yang Chen's words, the two Katian sect vice sect masters also smiled. Sect master is wise. Using ordinary disciples and experts of the sword sect in exchange for casualties was obviously a profit for the Katian sect. However, would Xiao Chun really let Yang Chun have his way? Yang Chun seemed to have already seen the sword sect suffering heavy casualties and was delighted. At this time, Xiao Chun also made a final show of respect. He gathered Xin Yuan Ling, Long Qing, Song Xing, and the others together and explained his plan in detail. He also told everyone what they should pay attention to. While Xiao Chun and Yang Chun each had their own ulterior motives and were heading towards the Tianwu continent, Zishi and the other evil sovereigns in the Great Hall of the Wood Spirit sect had already heard the news that the Great Thousand World was preparing to attack the Tianwu continent. However, Zishi and the other evil sovereigns weren't nervous at all. Just as we expected, the Great Thousand World's first target is the Tianwu continent. Since this is the case, we can proceed according to plan. Yin Tong was recuperating in seclusion, so he didn't appear. Zishi looked at the other evil sovereigns and smiled. That's right, we should try our best to delay the attack of the Great Thousand World on the Tianwu continent and buy time for Lord Evil God, Qi Mei said with a smile. Previously, they had already expected that the Great Thousand World's first target would be the Tianwu continent. After all, the Tianwu continent was the continent closest to the space channel. They didn't plan to defend the Tianwu continent to the death. However, the other evil sovereigns wanted to use the Tianwu continent to buy time. Therefore, many evil sovereigns had gathered on the Tianwu continent. The task of these evil sovereigns wasn't to defend the Tianwu continent to the death, but to buy time and retreat as much as possible. Of course, it was also necessary to do their best to destroy the Great Thousand World's forces. Unaware of the other evil sovereigns' plans, Xiao Chun and Yang Chun had already arrived outside the Tianwu continent. Looking at the Tianwu continent in front of them, both sides brought their men to the deck. At this time, Yang Chun looked at Xiao Chun and smiled. "Brother Xiao Chun, shall we attack now?" "Of course," Xiao Chun nodded and said. "Well, then let's attack together," Yang Chun said with a smile on his face. As if they hadn't discovered Yang Chen's trick at all, the experts of the Heavenly Sect and Sword Sect attacked at the same time. They jumped off the starship and directly attacked the Tianwu continent. Xiao Chun and Yang Chun were naturally in the group. Seeing that Xiao Chun hadn't lied to him and had indeed turned out in full force, Yang Chun was overjoyed. At this moment, the last trace of worry in Yang Chen's heart completely dissipated. As long as he fought with the evil sovereigns, Yang Chun wasn't afraid that Xiao Chun would lie to him again. Therefore, Yang Chun let down most of his guard and even shouted excitedly at Gao Shan, "Kill!" Hearing Yang Chen's words, many disciples of the Heavenly Sect also rushed toward the Tianwu continent. At the same time, many evil sovereigns on the Tianwu continent who had been waiting for a long time didn't choose to retreat in the face of the attacks of the Sword Sect and the Heavenly Sect. Instead, they directly faced them. Since they wanted to buy time, they naturally couldn't just retreat. They had to fight. Yang Chun was secretly excited. It was as if he could already see the sword sect suffering heavy casualties. As the two sides exchanged blows, the tens of thousands of people from the sword sect were quickly surrounded by the evil sovereigns. This time, the sword sect had very few people. At this time, it was obvious that they were completely surrounded. Seeing this, Yang Chen's heart calmed down, and he couldn't help but roar at the sky. "Haha, Xiao Chun, you idiot." However, Yang Chun held back in the end, because this was clearly not the right time to say such things. The two sides engaged in a fierce battle. Because Yang Chun had gradually let down his guard, he didn't realize that the people of Sword Gate had gradually split into different groups and were slowly approaching the heavenly coiling sect disciples. Initially, the evil cultivators only surrounded the Swords Gate disciples, but as the Swords Gate disciples moved, they gradually surrounded the Heavenly Gate disciples as well. They didn't notice this change at all. Of course, the people of the Sword Sect were very careful and didn't give themselves away. Looking at Yang Chun, who was still immersed in his excitement after killing an evil sovereign, Long Qing sneered at Xiao Chun and said, "This guy still thinks that we fell into his trap. Look at his expression. He's almost laughing out loud. Begging for your collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations." Chapter 23:31. Looking at Yang Chen's smiling face, Long Qing did not hide the disdain in her eyes. Hearing this, Xiao Chen also smiled and said, "Don't worry, he won't be happy for long." Looking at Yang Chen's smiling face, Long Qing did not hide the disdain in her eyes. Hearing this, Xiao Chen also smiled and said, "Don't worry, he won't be happy for long." Yang Chun did not sense that something was wrong, nor did he realize that not only was the sword sect surrounded, but even his heavenly sect's disciples were surrounded by the evil path's martial artists. Furthermore, as more and more evil path's martial artists arrived, the encirclement became more and more solid. Both sides fought fiercely. Looking at the sword sect's stance, it seemed like they really wanted to fight to the death with the evil path's martial artists. However, as time passed, one of the heavenly sect's vice sect leaders finally realized that something was wrong. He killed his way to Yang Chen's side and whispered to him, "Sect leader, something's wrong. We're also surrounded." HM. Hearing this vice sect leader's words, Yang Chen glanced at the battlefield and frowned. Indeed, not only were the sword sect's disciples surrounded, but many of the heavenly sect's disciples were also surrounded by the evil path's martial artists. Although the situation was very chaotic, the evil path's martial artists had formed an encirclement surrounding the sword sect's and heavenly sect's disciples. Yang Chun naturally did not know that the reason why the evil path's martial artists were able to easily form such a huge encirclement was mostly due to the sword sect's martial artists. If the sword sect's martial artists had not deliberately moved closer to the heavenly sect's disciples and held back, giving the evil path's martial artists enough time to form an encirclement, it would have been very difficult for them to form such a large encirclement in such a short time. Although he could not be sure, Yang Chun had a bad premonition in his heart. He faintly felt that Xiao Chan was definitely plotting something. However, no matter how Yang Chun thought about it, he could not figure out what Xiao Chun was plotting, because at this moment, not only were the heavenly sect's disciples surrounded, but the sword sect's martial artists were also surrounded. Xiao Chun was not able to escape unscathed. Could it be that Xiao Chan wants to die with me? Yang Chun wondered in his heart. However, he quickly shook his head and rejected this thought. Impossible. In Yang Chun's opinion, it was impossible for Xiao Chun to use all the elites of the sword sect to perish together with him. Even if all the ordinary disciples he brought with him were killed in the end, the loss of the heavenly gate would be far less than the loss of the sword sect. This was because even if all the ordinary disciples were killed, the elites of the heavenly gate would still be there, and the pillars would still be there. However, the Sword's Gate was different. Once all the experts of the Sword's Gate died, the Sword's Gate would be nothing but an empty shell. It was just like using porcelain to touch someone else's tile. Even if the end result was that the tile would break, it would definitely be the tile that had the upper hand. Yang Chun couldn't figure out what Xiao Chun was plotting. There was even a moment when Yang Chun wondered if he was overthinking things. However, just as Yang Chun was scratching his head in confusion, he heard Xiao Chen's voice. Damn it, there are too many evil path cultivators. Everyone, retreat. Xiao Chun gave the order to retreat without any warning. Hearing this, Yang Chun was stunned. What was going on? They were actually retreating? All of a sudden, Yang Chun looked at the battle in front of him. He saw that the experts of the sword sect had split into over 20 small groups. They were led by Xianyuan Ling, Long Qing, Song Xing, and other End Realm experts as they started to break out of the encirclement. The 20 small groups instantly became 20 sharp blades that tore apart the encirclement of the evil path cultivators. This time, Xiao Chan didn't bring many people. Furthermore, they were all the elites of the sword sect. With such an arrangement, it was obvious that they were useful in breaking out of the encirclement. As they weren't weak, breaking out of the encirclement was like a fish in water. Furthermore, there weren't many people, so it was easier to command them. Unlike the heavenly sect, although there were many people, most of them weren't that strong. So at this time, the sword sect experts could break out of the encirclement, but the heavenly sect disciples couldn't. This was the use of elites. Seeing the sword sect start to break out of the encirclement and retreat, Yang Chen's face sunk. He immediately shouted, "Retreat, follow the sword sect people." Yang Chen's reaction wasn't slow. He immediately ordered the heavenly sect disciples to follow the sword sect experts. This way, with the sword sect experts leading the way, breaking out of the encirclement would naturally be much easier. However, how could Xiao Chun not have anticipated that Yang Chun would have such thoughts? Hearing Yang Chen's words, Xiao Chun revealed a faint smile and murmured softly, "That's right. Can you keep up?" Yang Chun wanted the heavenly sect to follow the sword sect experts and break out of the encirclement. Unfortunately, Xiao Chun obviously wouldn't give him this opportunity. Furthermore, with the strength of the heavenly sect disciples, it was simply wishful thinking for them to keep up with the sword sect experts. Hearing Yang Chen's order, the heavenly sect disciples began to follow the sword sect experts and break out of the encirclement. However, they simply couldn't keep up with the sword sect experts. On one side were the lowest level disciples, while on the other side were the true elites. Their cultivation wasn't lower than the comprehension realm. The difference between the two sides was obvious. Moreover, during the breakout, the sword sect experts followed Xiao Chen's instructions and deliberately led the evil path cultivators towards the heavenly sect disciples. Although the heavenly sect disciples wanted to follow the sword sect experts and break out of the encirclement, not only did they not succeed, but they also fell into a tight encirclement. On the other hand, many people from the sword sect successfully broke out of the encirclement. As for the evil path cultivators, they obviously didn't care whether you were from the heavenly sect or the sword sect. Seeing that the sword sect experts had broken out of the encirclement, the evil path cultivators turned to attack the heavenly sect disciples. For a moment, the heavenly sect disciples suffered heavy casualties and were completely surrounded by the evil path cultivators. Yang Chun could not help but roar in anger as he listened to the miserable cries of the Katian Gate's disciples and watched as they fell and were killed one after another. At this time, if Yang Chun still didn't know that he had fallen into Xiao Chen's trap, then he really should buy a piece of tofu and kill himself. Now, Yang Chun finally understood why Xiao Chun had only brought so few people and why they were all elites from the sword sect. It was to make it easier for them to break out of the encirclement and trap him. Damn it, Xiao Chun, you and I can't exist under the same sky. Yang Chun had completely fallen into Xiao Chen's trap. At this time, the sword sect experts had broken out of the encirclement, but the heavenly sect disciples had become scapegoats and were crazily surrounded and killed by the evil path cultivators. Just as Yang Chun was burning with anger, Xiao Chen's voice rang out. "Brother Yang, the evil path cultivators are fierce. I'll leave first. Take care of yourself." Hearing Xiao Chen's words, Yang Chen spat out a mouthful of blood in anger. He turned and glared at Xiao Chun. Facing Yang Chen's glare, Xiao Chun actually smiled and waved his hand, causing Yang Chun to be even more furious. Please add me to your collection. Please recommend me. Chapter 23:32. Many of the sword sect's experts broke through the encirclement. This was the benefit of having a strong individual. As for the heavenly sect's disciples, because they weren't strong to begin with, and the sword sect had deliberately set them up, they were instantly surrounded. Many of the sword sect's experts broke through the encirclement. This was the benefit of having a strong individual. As for the heavenly sect's disciples, because they weren't strong to begin with, and the sword sect had deliberately set them up, they were instantly surrounded. But at this time, the heavenly sect's vice sect master beside Yang Chun said with a grave expression, "Sect master, let's retreat first. Where there's life, there's hope." Now wasn't the time to be angry. With just Yang Chun and the other's strength, there was no way to save the heavenly sect's disciples. The most important thing right now was for Yang Chun to break through the encirclement and escape. If he didn't leave now, even he wouldn't be able to escape. "Xiao Chun, just you wait. I won't let this go." Yang Chun roared angrily at Xiao Chun. Then, under the protection of the heavenly sect's experts and the two vice sect masters, he began to break through the encirclement. This time, Yang Chun could be said to have tried to steal a chicken only to end up losing the rice used to lure it. He had originally thought that he would be able to ruthlessly trap the sword sect, but who would have thought that he would be the first to fall into Xiao Chen's trap? The funny thing was that he hadn't even noticed it. From the very beginning, Xiao Chun had set him up, and he hadn't been on guard. This time, Xiao Chun had clearly arranged everything for him. He had only brought a small number of elites in order to be able to escape as quickly as possible during the battle. This was clearly something that Xiao Chun had considered from the very beginning. Yang Chun was furious, but he couldn't question Xiao Chun right now because he was still busy breaking through the encirclement. On the battlefield, following the withdrawal of the sword sect's experts, only the heavenly sect disciples were left fighting the evil path's experts. Facing the threat of death, the heavenly sect's disciples went crazy. There was nothing they could do. If they didn't kill the enemy in front of them, they would be killed. Therefore, the disciples of the heavenly sect could only do their best. The heavenly sect's disciples had suffered heavy casualties, but at the same time, the evil warriors had also paid a heavy price. Of course, in terms of numbers, it was obvious that the evil warriors had the absolute advantage. There was no doubt about this. Ignoring Yang Chun and the disciples of the heavenly gate, Xiao Chun, Song Xing, and the other vice sect leaders and elders went to the sky not far away as promised after they retreated from the battle. Looking at the thousands of Song Xing before him, Xiao Chun took out a spatial spirit boat from his storage ring and handed it to Song Xing. Then, with a serious expression, he said, "Be careful. Rest assured, sect master." In response, Song Xing nodded heavily in response. Then, thousands of people boarded the spatial spirit boat and quickly disappeared from the spot. Xiao Chun naturally had his own reasons for letting Song Xing and the others leave. This was because from now on, Song Xing and the thousands of people were already dead in the battle, according to Xiao Chen's words. Xiao Chen's motive was to let Song Xing and the others leave and pretend that they had died in the battle. As for where Song Xing and the others would go, Xiao Chen only asked them to find a secret place in the starry sky to hide temporarily. Although the Flame Wind world was filled with experts and evil paths experts from the Great Thousand World, it was impossible for every inch of the starry sky to be occupied by people from both sides. Therefore, it wasn't too difficult for a small spatial spirit boat to find a place to hide in the endless starry sky of the Flame Wind world. As for where the spatial spirit boat came from, it was naturally given to Xiao Chun by Jun Wuya. The Sword Sect's spatial spirit boat had been destroyed long ago, so the Sword Sect didn't have a spatial spirit boat now. However, as the strongest person in the Great Thousand World, Jun Wuya had a spatial spirit boat that belonged to him. This was nothing strange. After watching Song Xing and the others leave, Xiao Chun returned to the battlefield again. At this time, Yang Chun finally broke out of the encirclement under the protection of a group of experts from the heavenly sect. However, the disciples of the heavenly sect weren't so lucky. At this time, they were still bathed in blood and were trapped in the encirclement. As soon as he broke out of the encirclement, Yang Chun couldn't hold back the anger in his heart and immediately rushed toward Xiao Chun. Seeing Xiao Chun surrounded by Xinyuan Ling, Long Qing, and the others, Yang Chun immediately shouted angrily, "Xiao Chun, you tricked me." Indeed, he was tricked by Xiao Chun. However, after hearing Yang Chun's words, Xiao Chun said with a puzzled look, "Brother Yang, what do you mean by that? What did I trick you? Just now, we were already surrounded and I ordered a temporary retreat. What's wrong with that?" Of course, Xiao Chun wouldn't admit that he tricked Yang Chun. In response, the anger in Yang Chun's eyes burned brighter. He pointed at Xiao Chun and was so angry that he couldn't speak. Now, the disciples of the Heavenly Gate were still struggling in a pool of blood, while the experts of Swords Gate were able to escape from the battle with ease. This made Yang Chun feel extremely unbalanced. Although the battle wasn't over and the casualties hadn't been calculated, Yang Chun was very clear that the Heavenly Sect would suffer heavy losses in the end. Because at this moment, the Heavenly Sect was fighting against the evil path martial artists alone. Such a battle was simply courting death. Although they had killed many evil path martial artists, many of the Heavenly Sect's disciples had perished as well. Facing the furious Yang Chun, Xiao Chun said with a smile, "Brother Yang, the formation just now was indeed bad, but you don't have to worry. I will go and support the Heavenly Sect disciples." After saying that, Xiao Chun glanced at Xinyuan Ling and Long Qing. Then, the two of them led the experts of the Sword Sect and joined the battle once again. Would Xiao Chun be so kind as to rescue the Heavenly Sect disciples? Hearing this, Yang Chun turned around and looked at the Swords Gate disciples who had joined the battle once again. But it would have been better if he didn't look, because when he did, he almost coughed out another mouthful of blood. Although Xiao Chun said that he was going to rescue the Heavenly Sect disciples, and the Sword Sect members had indeed joined the battle, the Sword Sect members didn't seem to have the slightest intention of rescuing them. Although they had joined the battle, they only did so from the periphery. As for the Heavenly Sect disciples who were surrounded, they didn't receive any reinforcements at all. Xiao Chun, without a doubt, Xiao Chun was clearly toying with him. Upon seeing that Yang Chun was about to scold him again, Xiao Chun interrupted him with a playful expression. "Brother Yang, I know you're anxious, but this is a battlefield after all. The slightest carelessness can lead to total annihilation. I know you're worried about the Heavenly Sect disciples, and so am I, but we still need to plan slowly to rescue them. Don't be impatient. I believe that the reinforcements will be here soon, and they will surely be able to rescue the Heavenly Sect disciples. Please add me to your collection. Please recommend me." Chapter 23:33. Xiao Chun said with a mocking expression. Yang Chun gritted his teeth in anger. How could he not know that Xiao Chun had no intention of rescuing the Heavenly Sect disciples? He was just toying with him. However, Yang Chun could do nothing about it. Facing so many evil path cultivators, even if Yang Chun wanted to rescue the Heavenly Sect disciples, he was powerless. Of course, it was also because Yang Chun had left more than half of the Heavenly Sect's elites at the entrance of the spatial tunnel. Otherwise, he would have been able to rescue them. Unfortunately, Yang Chun had no one by his side. Yang Chun could only watch as the Heavenly Coiling Sect disciples fell one after another, and there was nothing he could do. He then looked at the Swords Gate experts who were just putting up an act, and his heart started to bleed. Yang Chun knew that they would definitely not rescue them now, so he did not say anything. He could only hope that the reinforcements would arrive as soon as possible. The battle was over. It could be said that the situation was one-sided. This time, the evil path cultivators had the upper hand. Many of the Heavenly Sect's disciples were fleeing like rats. Just as Yang Chun was about to lose all hope, the reinforcements finally arrived. The experts from the Saber Sect, Moon Palace, Heavenly Een Tower, Heavenly Policy Mansion, and other major forces arrived one after another. Seeing the reinforcements, Yang Chun could not help but shout, "Brother Yin Sheng, Brother Yun, please help us." The Heavenly Sect, Heavenly Yin Tower, and Mu Tianshan had a good relationship. Therefore, Yang Chun asked Yin Sheng and Yun Tianyi for help. Hearing Yang Chun's words, Yin Sheng and Yun Tianyi, who were standing on the deck, looked at the battlefield. With a glance, the two of them saw the Heavenly Sect's disciples surrounded by the evil path cultivators. Yin Sheng and Yun Tianyi were stunned when they looked at the Swords Gate experts that were patrolling the perimeter. What was going on? They were both the vanguard, but why were the Heavenly Sect's disciples heavily surrounded and suffering heavy casualties? On the other hand, the Sword Sect side could do nothing in the periphery. They did not know what had happened, but looking at the current situation, if this continued, the Heavenly Gate disciples would probably be completely annihilated. After blocking it, Yin Sheng and Yun Tianyi did not hesitate and immediately gave the order to attack. At the same time, Dao Ju and Xiao Xiao did the same. However, the two of them still went to Xiao Chen's side. Dao Ju looked at Xiao Chen curiously and asked, "Xiao Chen, what's going on? A disciple of the Heavenly Sect?" "Oh," Brother Yang said, "he wanted to show me the absolute strength of Heavenly Sect's disciples, so I accidentally went too deep." Hearing this, Xiao Chen said lightly, "Let Xiao Chen see the absolute strength of a Hatian Sect disciple." And then accidentally went too deep? Upon hearing Xiao Chen's words, Dao Ju and Xiao Xiao were both stunned. As for Yang Chun, he turned his head and glared at Xiao Chun. "Xiao Chun, okay, Brother Yang, I saw it all. Yes, the strength of your Heavenly Sect's disciples is indeed not to be underestimated. Moreover, each and every one of them is not afraid of death. It really shocked me. Brother Yang, your Heavenly Sect is very lucky to have such disciples." Facing Yang Chen's angry roar, Xiao Chun did not wait for him to finish and directly interrupted him. After hearing Xiao Chen's words, Yang Chen's face was already incomparably gloomy, while Dao Ju laughed heartily without any scruples. "Not afraid of death, my ass." Xiao Chen's words were simply to fool a 3-year-old child. With Yang Chen's personality, how could he possibly let Heavenly Sect disciples be so fearless of death? Obviously, he was definitely tricked by Xiao Chun. Although they did not know what had happened, it was not difficult for them to guess what had happened just by looking at the situation before them. It was definitely Xiao Chun who had ruthlessly tricked Yang Chun. The fierce battle continued, but with the resources of the various major forces, the pressure on the Heavenly Sect's disciples was naturally reduced by a lot. Moreover, many of the Heavenly Sect disciples had outstanding results. But even so, the Heavenly Sect disciples still suffered heavy casualties this time. Almost half of them had died in the hands of the evil path cultivators. Originally, there were close to 100,000 disciples, but now there were less than 50,000 survivors. Such casualties made Yang Chun have the urge to vomit blood. The Heavenly Sect's disciples broke out of the encirclement under the protection of the experts of the various major forces. Then, everyone launched a counterattack. In the face of the experts of the Saber Sect, Moon Palace, and other major forces, although the evil path cultivators resisted for a while, they soon chose to retreat. Regarding this, Xiao Chun and the others did not choose to pursue. After successfully setting foot on the Tianwu continent, everyone set up camp on the spot. Having just experienced a great battle, it was indeed not suitable to continue pursuing at this time, especially the Heavenly Sect disciples. Due to the heavy casualties, they needed to rest and reorganize. They had successfully set foot on the Tianwu continent. Next, they needed to not only encircle and annihilate the evil path cultivators, but also completely seize the Tianwu continent. However, at this moment, after settling down the cultivators of the various sects, Yang Chun did not care about what would happen next. Instead, he gathered everyone and prepared to denounce them. Yang Chun naturally could not swallow the anger of losing so many disciples for nothing. No matter what, he had to make Xiao Chun and the Sword Sect pay the price. For a time, Xiao Chun, Dao Ju, Xiao Xiao, Yang Chun, Yin Sheng, Yin Tianyi, and the others gathered together in a starship. Yang Chen's face was ashen as he looked at Xiao Chun and shouted angrily. Xiao Chun, in the face of such a great enemy, you actually dared to trick me. If you don't give me an explanation for this matter, I will not let this matter rest. Yang Chun scolded angrily as soon as he arrived. There was no other way. After counting, the number of heavenly sect disciples who had died in the battle was more than 50,000. As for the remaining disciples, almost all of them were injured, and nearly 10,000 of them were seriously injured. Such casualties had practically crippled the ordinary disciples of the heavenly sect. With such a heavy price to pay, Yang Chun naturally could not let this matter rest. However, after hearing Yang Chen's words, Xiao Chun said indifferently, "Oh, you were the one who acted rashly, and now you're blaming me? Is there such a reason? Acting rashly?" Hearing Xiao Chen's words, Yang Chun gritted his teeth. Acting rashly, your sister. From the beginning, Yang Chun had never thought of acting rashly. To put it bluntly, Yang Chun actually just wanted to be a bystander, but who would have thought that he would be tricked by Xiao Chun? If the sword sect's experts had not suddenly broken through, his heavenly sect would not have suffered such a heavy loss. Therefore, all of this was caused by Xiao Chun. As for saying that he acted rashly due to his own greed, that was simply a joke. Immediately, Yang Chun shouted angrily, "Xiao Chun, bullshit! It was clearly your sword sect that fled at the last moment, causing my heavenly sect's disciples to be besieged. If you don't give me an explanation now, I will definitely seek justice, even if I have to make a scene in front of all the sovereigns. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations." Chapter 23:34. Because the casualties of the heavenly sect disciples were too heavy, Yang Chun could not suppress the anger in his heart. However, after hearing his words, Xiao Chun coldly snorted. "Scoff! Explanation? Yang Chun, even if there is an explanation, it should be me. You were the one who was greedy, causing you to be surrounded by evil cultivators. My sword sect risked our lives to save you, but in the end, you still dare to bite back." Xiao Chen's face was really ugly. Yang Chun was stunned. The sword sect risked their lives to save him? When EF*CK did this happen? One must know that in a normal battle, Xiao Chun didn't have any intention to save him. If it wasn't for the sword sect, Hetian sect wouldn't have suffered such heavy losses. A portion of the Hetian sect disciples could have broken out, but because the sword sect experts purposely attracted so many evil cultivators, the Hetian sect disciples were surrounded. But now, Xiao Chun actually said that he bit back? This was simply a venomous slander. Glaring furiously at Xiao Chun, Yang Chun roared. "Xiao Chun, you what? It's obviously your heavenly gate's fault, but in the end, my sword's gate has to pay for it. You said that your heavenly gate suffered heavy casualties, but do you know that my sword's gate lost 3 vice headmasters in this battle, including vice headmaster Song Xing? There were also many elders, deacons, and elders. Yang Chun, tell me, don't you think you should give me an explanation? Song Xing died? The sword sect lost 3 End Realm deputy sect leaders in one battle?" Hearing Xiao Chen's words, not only Yang Chun, but even Dao Ju, Xiao Xiao, Yin Sheng, Yin Tianyi, and the others were stunned. One must know that the death of 1 End Realm deputy sect leader was a huge loss, not to mention 3 in one battle. If what Xiao Chun said was true, then the price that the sword sect paid was much more than the Hetian sect. They couldn't help but look toward Xiao Chun. Yang Chun was also stunned. The sword sect suffered such heavy losses? In that instant, Yang Chun actually had doubts. However, very quickly, he tossed this doubt to the back of his head. He definitely didn't believe that the sword sect would suffer such heavy losses. What a joke. They were just putting on an act, and 3 End Realm deputy sect leaders died. How was that possible? Xiao Chun was completely twisting the truth. Very quickly, Yang Chun reacted. He pointed at Xiao Chun and hollered, "Xiao Chun, don't go overboard. Your sword sect was just putting on an act from the start. How could there be such heavy losses? You are twisting the truth, and confusing the truth. Yang Chen was sure that the sword sect didn't suffer such heavy losses because this was a normal battle. It could be said that the Haitian sect was fighting and the sword sect didn't do anything at all. Yang Chen hollered. Towards this, Xiao Chen's face was also filled with anger. Okay, Yang Chen, since that is the case, then let's meet in front of the emperors. I want to see if the emperors are as shameless as you. Song Xing and the others naturally didn't die. However, Song Xing and the others couldn't be found in the sword sect's camp. Therefore, in the eyes of others, Song Xing and the others were dead. Xiao Chun had expected that Yang Chen wouldn't let this matter rest, so he was fully prepared. Even if he made a scene in front of the emperors, Xiao Chun wasn't afraid at all. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, Yang Chun gritted his teeth and hollered, Okay, Xiao Chun, then let's meet in front of the emperors. No matter what, Yang Chun didn't believe that the sword sect would suffer such heavy losses. If that was the case, then he could only say that the entire sword sect was a bunch of idiots. However, after fighting with the sword sect so many times, Yang Chen knew very well that the deputy sect masters of the sword sect were definitely not weak. It was impossible for them to die so easily. After confirming that Xiao Chun was distorting right and wrong, Yang Chun immediately sent a letter to Tao Ming and told him about the incident on the Tianwu continent, adding oil and vinegar to it. According to Yang Chun, the sword sect clearly didn't care about the safety of the Great Thousand Domains. In the face of a great enemy, they actually retreated at the last minute, violating the agreement between the emperors and should be severely punished. Seeing Yang Chun send a letter to Tao Ming, Xiao Chen's face didn't change in the slightest. He had been watching everything with cold eyes, without the slightest intention of stopping it. He wanted to go to the emperors and get justice. Soon after, the crowd dispersed and waited for the emperors to arrive. After the first battle, the evil path cultivators retreated, and the crowd set up camp on the Tianwu continent. They could be considered to have gained a foothold on the Tianwu continent. Xiao Chen didn't care about Yang Chen's matter. He was very confident that even if he went to the emperors, he wouldn't be the one to suffer a loss. Soon a day passed. Tao Ming, Jun Weia, Dan Qingyang, and Yin Litian, the four emperors, came to the Tianwu continent together. The four of them came because of Yang Chun and Xiao Chen's matter, and also to preside over the attack on the Tianwu continent. The Tianwu continent was the first target set by the emperors, so it had to be taken down. When the four emperors arrived at the Tianwu continent, Yang Chun immediately went to complain. In front of Tao Ming, Yang Chun said with extreme grief and indignation, Master, seniors, you must uphold justice for me. Since we are facing a great enemy, the Great Thousand Domains should be united against the enemy. But Xiao Chun, as the sect master of the sword sect, not only retreated at the last minute, he even framed my heavenly sect, causing more than 50,000 casualties, Yang Chun said with a face full of grief and indignation. Hearing this, Tao Ming looked at Jun Weia and said, Brother Weia, what do you think of this matter? Tao Ming and the other three knew very well that if what Yang Chun said was true, Xiao Chun and the sword sect would definitely be punished, because this was something that the emperors had already discussed. During the period of the alliance, no force could attack other forces, or they would be besieged by the other forces. The sword sect was no exception to this. In the face of a great enemy, internal conflicts were the most feared. Therefore, if what Yang Chen said was true, then Xiao Chun would definitely be punished. Even Jun Weia wouldn't be able to protect him, unless Jun Weia wanted to become enemies with the entire Great Thousand Domains. Tao Ming's tone was flat, as if it had nothing to do with him at all. However, at this time, a cold smile flashed in Tao Ming's eyes. Although the heavenly sect had suffered heavy losses this time, they were all ordinary disciples, so it wasn't too serious a loss. If they could seize this opportunity to punish Xiao Chun severely, or even cripple him, then in Tao Ming and Yang Chen's eyes, it would all be worth it. Exchanging 50,000 ordinary disciples for Xiao Chun was definitely a profit, without a doubt. However, after hearing Tao Ming's words, Jun Weia said indifferently, We can't just listen to one side of the story. Let's listen to what Xiao Chun has to say before making a decision. What do you all think? Please add, please vote, please recommend. Chapter 23:35. In the face of Tao Ming and Yang Chen's accusations, Jun Huiya didn't seem to be worried at all. Dan Xinyang and Yin Litian also nodded slightly in agreement. Fine, let Xiao Chun come forward and confront him. Dan Xinyang was obviously on the side of the sword sect, but Yin Litian was on the same side as Tao Ming. This time, the sovereigns sent Jun Huiya and the other three here because they had already thought it through. Jun Huiya and Dan Xinyang were close, and Tao Ming and Yin Litian were on the same side. In this way, there were 4 sovereigns and 2 against 2, which was relatively fair. If all the venerable emperors who were on good terms with Tao Ming or Jun Huiya were sent here, it would obviously be impossible to be fair and just. Therefore, even though Yin Litian wanted to directly convict Xiao Chun, there was nothing wrong with what Jun Huiya had said. It was impossible to punish Xiao Chun just based on Yang Chen's one-sided statement. This was indeed unreasonable. Even though Yin Litian didn't agree with Jun Huiya's suggestion, he still agreed with Jun Huiya's suggestion. Moreover, in Yin Litian's opinion, this matter was already set in stone. Even if Xiao Chun came forward, what harm could it do? Could Xiao Chun turn the tables when the facts were right in front of him? Soon, Xiao Chun arrived. But before Yang Chen's smile could fully bloom, Xiao Chun burst into tears as soon as he entered the room. Master, seniors, you have to uphold justice for me. If Yang Chen's accusation was said to be filled with hatred, then Xiao Chun was bawling at this moment. Xiao Chun did not even bother to ask. He simply cried out loud, as if he had suffered a great grievance. Looking at Xiao Chun's appearance, Yang Chun was stunned. Even Tao Ming and Yin Litian, who were sitting on the main seats, were stunned. For a moment, they didn't understand the situation at all. Wasn't the heavenly sect being cheated? Why did it seem like the sword sect had been cheated? Xiao Chen's shout stunned everyone present. After a while, Dan Xinyang spoke first with a helpless smile on his face. Xiao Chun, calm down. Tell me honestly what happened. Dan Xinyang couldn't figure out what Xiao Chun was up to, but soon, as Xiao Chun explained, the expressions of the 4 sovereigns changed. Teacher, Vice Sect Master Tsang Xing has left. In this battle, 3 Vice Sect Masters of our Sword's Gate have fallen. As for the remaining elders, deacons, and elders, we have also lost over 1,000 people. This is all because of Yang Chun. He purposely set me up, causing the Sword's Gate to be surrounded by the evil cultivators. He has betrayed us and colluded with the enemy. If it wasn't for the fact that I was prepared beforehand, I reckon that our Sword's Gate would have been wiped out. The Sword Sect had lost 3 End-Realm Vice Sect Masters. There were also thousands of elders, and deacons who had died. And the reason for all of this was because of Yang Chen's plot, causing the Sword Sect to be surrounded by the evil path's martial artists. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, Yang Chen couldn't help but shout, Xiao Chun, you are slandering us. It was clearly your Sword Sect's plot that caused our Heavenly Sect's martial artists to be surrounded. You, Yang Chun, you are the one who is slandering us. Now you dare to play the blame game? Hearing this, Xiao Chun roared angrily, his face filled with grief and indignation. One had to admit that Xiao Chen's acting was simply perfect. Looking at him, it was as if the Sword Sect had really suffered a heavy blow. Hearing the quarrel between Xiao Chun and Yang Chun, Tao Ming and Yin Litian frowned. If Xiao Chen's words were true, then the Sword Sect's losses were undoubtedly the greatest. And they couldn't punish Xiao Chun. Not only couldn't they punish Xiao Chun, but Yang Chun himself also couldn't escape punishment. After all, the Sword Sect's losses were so great that someone naturally had to take responsibility. Otherwise, what would the other factions think of them? When the time came, wouldn't the Great Thousand World collapse by itself? If Xiao Chen's words were true, then the Heavenly Sect's losses were nothing. Not only that, but Yang Chen also had to take responsibility and give an explanation to the other factions of the Great Thousand World. Even Tao Ming and Yin Litian didn't dare to cover this up, because it would incur the wrath of the other factions. Their expressions became very unsightly, but Tao Ming still said in a deep voice, "Xiao Chun, you say the sword sect's losses are great. Do you have any proof?" "What proof do I need? My sword sect's 3 vice sect masters have died. Everyone knows this. If you don't believe me, you can send someone to verify it yourself." Xiao Chun roared in grief and indignation. Xiao Chun naturally wasn't afraid of Tao Ming sending someone to investigate. In any case, Song Xing and the others weren't here at all. What could he do when there was no proof? Hearing Xiao Chen's words, Tao Ming unconsciously glanced at Yang Chun. Clearly, Tao Ming was somewhat suspicious of Yang Chun. Could it be that Yang Chun had schemed to frame the sword sect? Now he's the one making the accusation? Sensing his honored master's gaze, Yang Chun was so angry that he wanted to vomit blood. Even his honored master didn't believe him. Immediately, Yang Chun angrily said, I absolutely didn't scheme to frame the sword sect. Xiao Chun is slandering me." Whether it's slandering or not, the sovereigns will know once they investigate, Xiao Chun coldly snorted. This time, Xiao Chun had made it clear that he wanted to kill Yang Chun. Not only did he want the heavenly sect to suffer heavy losses, but he also wanted Yang Chun to be his scapegoat. Moreover, the punishment that Yang Chun had to bear this time obviously wouldn't be light, otherwise it wouldn't be enough to convince the public. Seeing Xiao Chun so full of confidence, Tao Ming felt even more uncertain. At the same time, he was even more suspicious of Yang Chun. After all, Tao Ming was very clear about his disciple's temperament. Yang Chun was really capable of slandering others. However, if what Xiao Chun said was true, then wasn't Yang Chun too stupid? Since he had already schemed to frame the sword sect, was there still a need for him to make the accusation first? Did Yang Chun really think that the sovereigns were all idiots? Idiots? That they could punish Xiao Chun just because of his one-sided words? For some reason, Tao Ming was a little disappointed in Yang Chun. Sensing the change in his honored master's gaze, Yang Chun felt like he had to suffer in silence, unable to say anything. He was clearly the one who had been tricked by Xiao Chun, but in the end, why did it feel like he was the one making the accusation first? However, even though he was a little disappointed in Yang Chun, Tao Ming still had to side with him. Therefore, at this time, Tao Ming could only brace himself and say, "Men, go to the sword sect's encampment and see if Xiao Chen's words are true." No matter what, they still had to confirm whether Xiao Chen's words were true. As for the rest, they could talk about it later. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. In a chapter. Chapter 2336. In the face of Xiao Chen's superb acting skills, Tao Ming had no confidence in his heart. He could only send people to investigate first to see if Xiao Chen was telling the truth. Seeing that even his own master did not believe him, Yang Chen's heart was filled with unspeakable bitterness. However, at this time, there was no other way. Yang Chen could only forcefully suppress the anger in his heart. However, his gaze was fixed on Xiao Chen. It felt as if he wanted to skin Xiao Chen alive. Unfortunately, in the face of Yang Chen's gaze, Xiao Chen did not move at all. He did not even pay attention to it, completely ignoring it. This time, even if I don't kill you, I will cripple you. On the surface, Xiao Chen looked calm, but in his heart, he sneered and thought to himself. He had planned everything from the very beginning, and the whole process had been very smooth. Yang Chen had jumped into the hole that he had dug for him without any warning. It could be said that until now, everything was going according to the script that Xiao Chen had planned. At this point, even if Yang Chen discovered something, it would be of no use. It could be said that he had arranged for Yang Chen to be cleared up. Xiao Chen was not worried at all. Soon, the people who went to investigate returned. The results of their investigation were exactly as Xiao Chen said. Everyone in the sword sect confirmed that Song Xing and the others were indeed dead. Moreover, they had also thoroughly searched the sword sect's encampment. Similarly, they did not discover the identities of Song Xing and the others. Basically, they could conclude that Song Xing and the others were dead. Facing such a result, Yang Chun was stunned at first. Then he angrily shouted, "Impossible, absolutely impossible. It must be Xiao Chen's trick. He must be deliberately mystifying things." Yang Chen did not expect such a result. The people of the Sword Sect had clearly broken through the encirclement at the beginning. How could they have suffered such heavy losses? He did not believe it at all. He insisted that all of this was Xiao Chen's doing. Unfortunately, although Yang Chun shouted angrily, he didn't have any evidence. After all, only the people from the Sword Sect and the Heavenly Sect were present during the battle. With the relationship between the two, the words of the Heavenly Gate's disciples were naturally not to be trusted. As such, it was difficult for Yang Chun to defend himself. By the time Dao Ju and the rest arrived, the Sword Sect had already joined the battle. It looked as if the Sword Sect had never retreated. Therefore, Yang Chen's words could not be verified. In the face of Yang Chen's angry roar, Xiao Chun coldly snorted and said, "Yang Chun, that's enough. My Sword Sect was set up by you, and we've been besieged and suffered heavy casualties. Not only do you not have the slightest bit of regret, but you also want to bite back. You've openly violated the alliance agreement of the many forces in the Great Thousand Domains. You violated the alliance rules." With that, Xiao Chun turned to look at Junwei and the other three and said with righteous indignation, "Master, Senior, please uphold justice for my Sword Sect." The truth was right in front of them. Regardless of whether all of this was true or not, Yang Chun could not produce any evidence to refute it. Therefore, when they heard Xiao Chen's words, Tao Ming and Yin Li Tian's expressions turned ugly. Based on the current results, not only did the Sword Sect not have the slightest bit of fault, but they also contributed greatly. The Sword Sect had suffered heavy losses, so the alliance should compensate the Sword Sect. As for Yang Chun and uniting Heaven Gate, they would definitely be triggered. No one could change this fact. After all, the alliance was not decided by one person. Even if Junwei had absolute strength, it was impossible for him to fight against all of them. Tao Ming and Yin Litian looked at each other silently. They both knew that this matter was a little difficult to deal with. However, just as the two of them were secretly thinking about how to deal with this matter, Xiao Chun gave Junwei a look. Seeing this, Junwei smiled helplessly, but he still spoke. "The facts are clear. Since you violated the alliance rules, you'll naturally be punished. Does anyone have any objections?" After hearing Junwei's words, Tao Ming and Yin Litian naturally did not dare to have any objections. After all, they were in the right now. However, while Tao Ming and Yin Litian remained silent, Yang Chun could no longer remain calm. He was clearly the one who was tricked by Xiao Chun, but in the end, he was the one who was punished. How could Yang Chun win? Immediately, Yang Chun glared at Xiao Chun and said fiercely, "Xiao Chun, I'll kill you." After saying that, Yang Chun directly attacked Xiao Chun. Seeing this, Xiao Chun sneered. Xiao Chun was not afraid of Yang Chun at all. However, just as Yang Chun attacked, before he could even touch Xiao Chun, a huge force directly threw Yang Chun away. The one who made a move was none other than Yang Chun's master, Tao Ming. Looking at his disciple, Tao Ming shouted with a cold expression, "You disgraceful thing. Don't you know where you are? How dare you make a move? Scram to the side." Tao Ming had no choice but to stop Yang Chun. They were already in the wrong. If Yang Chun took the initiative to attack, it would only make things worse. Besides, Yang Chun attacked Xiao Chun. Would Xiao Chun be afraid? Not only was Xiao Chun not afraid, but he would only make things worse. When the time came, there would be no way to resolve the situation. After being shouted at by Tao Ming, Yang Chun felt extremely wronged. However, at this time, Yang Chun gradually regained his composure. Since things had already come to this, Yang Chun knew that he had been completely defeated this time. He had been completely tricked by Xiao Chun. There was no way he could fight back at all. If he continued to fight, there would be no good result. He could only admit defeat. Suppressing the anger in his heart, Yang Chun no longer spoke. At this time, Junwei said, "Let's invite the others." Without waiting for Tao Ming and the others to reply, Junwei directly contacted the other sovereigns through a sound-transmitting charm. Soon, the other sovereigns and Tenzu's soul avatars arrived. All the emperors gathered together again, and Junwei told everyone the truth about what had happened. Tao Ming did not refute him at all during the whole process. As a sovereign, Tao Ming knew very well that if he refused to admit it at this time, it would only make everyone look down on him even more. As a sovereign, Tao Ming naturally wanted to save face. Not only Tao Ming, but even Yin Litian and Yun Shun, the two sovereigns who had the best relationship with him, chose to remain silent this time. Until Junwei told the whole story, the three of them did not interrupt. After he finished, Junwei said indifferently, "This is the situation. How do you think it should be resolved?" At this moment, Junwei's face turned slightly cold. In the eyes of the sovereigns, Junwei was angry because the sword sect had suffered heavy losses this time. In this regard, the sovereigns expressed that they could understand. After all, the death of 3 deputy sect masters was a loss that could not be ignored in any force. Please add this to your collection, monthly votes, and recommendations. In a chapter. Chapter 23:37. After listening to Junwei's words, the sovereigns were silent for a moment before Tenzu spoke first. After listening to Junwei's words, the sovereigns were silent for a moment before Tenzu spoke first. The sword sect has fought valiantly this time. As soon as he spoke, Tenzu first acknowledged the sword sect's contribution and praised them vigorously. Then he reprimanded Yang Chun for failing to see the bigger picture and scheming against an ally in the face of a powerful enemy. This was obviously a despicable act. Then, the sovereigns discussed the punishment. Originally, Xiao Chun wanted to take this opportunity to directly cripple Yang Chun, but it seemed that the sovereigns did not intend to be so ruthless. However, the sword sect had suffered such a great loss this time that they had to give an explanation no matter what. Therefore, under the pressure of Xiao Chun and Junwei, the sovereigns finally came to a decision. First of all, compensation was naturally indispensable. Regardless of whether Yang Chun was willing or not, he had to pay enough compensation to the sword sect. Yang Chun naturally did not agree to this, but this time, before Yang Chun could say anything, Tao Ming directly agreed. Although the compensation Xiao Chun asked for this time was indeed a little too much, Tao Ming had no choice. If he did not compensate Yang Chun, the consequences could be imagined, so he could only choose to agree. In addition to compensation, Xiao Chun also made another request. That was, the heavenly sect had to continue to be the vanguard and had to go all out. It could not be like this time, where they only used ordinary disciples to do things half-heartedly. Hearing Xiao Chun's request, Yang Chun immediately shouted angrily, "Xiao Chun, don't go too far." After paying a sky-high compensation, Xiao Chun still wanted the heavenly sect to continue to be the vanguard and had to go all out. Yang Chun naturally could not agree to this. Being the vanguard would inevitably lead to losses, and under the circumstances of going all out, who knew what the final result would be? This was undoubtedly weakening the strength of the heavenly sect. Not only Yang Chun, but even Tao Ming's face darkened, but he didn't say anything. He just looked at Xiao Chun coldly. In the face of Yang Chun's angry roar, Xiao Chun remained unmoved. Compensation alone was not enough. Moreover, he was in the right this time. How could Xiao Chun let Yang Chun off so easily? Xiao Chun insisted on letting heavenly sect be the vanguard. In this regard, after a discussion, the emperors unanimously agreed to Xiao Chun's request. After all, having the heavenly sect as the vanguard wasn't a loss to them. Moreover, the sword sect had indeed suffered heavy losses this time. It wouldn't make sense for the sword sect to continue being the vanguard. Seeing that all the sovereigns had agreed, Yang Chun looked at Tao Ming unwillingly, but Tao Ming just snorted coldly and said, "Fine, my heavenly gate agrees." Tao Ming agreed. Seeing this, even though Yang Chun was extremely unwilling, he couldn't refute. After all, Tao Ming had already spoken, so what else could Yang Chun say? The final punishment was thus decided. Not only did Xiao Chun severely cheat Yang Chun, but he also received a huge sum of compensation from Yang Chun. In the end, after comforting Xiao Chun and Jun Wuya, the emperors left one after another. Soon, only Jun Wuya, Tao Ming, Dan Xingyang, and Yin Letian were left in the room. Since the matter had been decided, Tao Ming didn't stay for long. With a cold snort, he immediately left with Yang Chun. After Tao Ming and Yang Chun left, Xiao Chun and Jun Wuya also returned to the sword sect's encampment. Jun Wuya naturally knew that Song Xing and the others weren't dead. Helplessly looking at Xiao Chun, Jun Wuya scolded jokingly, "Kid, aren't you a little too cruel?" This time, Xiao Chun had indeed cheated Yang Chun badly. Thinking back to Yang Chun's angry expression before he left, Jun Wuya felt a little apologetic. However, Xiao Chun didn't care much about this and said, "Since he's an enemy, there's naturally no need to be merciful. In any case, after dealing with the evil path cultivators, we'll definitely have a battle with the Heavenly Gate." Xiao Chun didn't show the slightest bit of mercy. In response, Jun Wuya smiled and didn't say anything. Just as Xiao Chun had said, the Sword Sect and the Heavenly Gate would have a battle sooner or later. It didn't matter whether they offended them or not. Seeing Xiao Chun return, Xin Yuanling, Long Qing, Gu Lingyao, Tianyu, and the others who had been waiting there for a long time immediately inquired about the outcome of the matter. In response, Xiao Chun smiled and told them the truth. Hearing that Yang Chun had been cheated so badly by Xiao Chun, they all smiled, especially Long Qing, who couldn't hide the excitement in her eyes. Long Yuan was in Tao Ming's hands, so Lin Qing naturally hated him to the bone. He had long vowed to destroy the Heavenly Gate to avenge Long Yuan. Now that Xiao Chun had cheated the Heavenly Gate, although he couldn't directly destroy the Heavenly Gate, it could be considered as collecting some interest in advance. But little brother, what do you plan to do with Song Xing and the others? This matter won't be able to be concealed sooner or later. After the excitement, Long Qing asked worriedly. Xiao Chun had repeatedly said that Song Xing and the others had died, but this matter couldn't be concealed for too long. Once the battle was over, Song Xing and the others would definitely return. At that time, if the other forces found out, what would they do? Hearing Long Qing's words, Xiao Chun smiled and said, "If we can't hide it, then so be it." After this battle, it's hard to say what the situation in the Great Thousand World will be like. Xiao Chun wasn't worried about Song Xing and the others. The battle between the good and evil had broken out once again. After the battle, the Great Thousand World would definitely be in a new state. At that time, who would have the energy to worry about the Sword Sect? Hearing Xiao Chun's words, although Long Qing was still a little worried, he didn't say anything more. Since Xiao Chun knew what to do, then it was fine. The Sword Sect didn't need to take action to attack the Tianwu Road. This could be considered a kind of compensation from the emperors to the Sword Sect. After all, in the eyes of the emperors, the Sword Sect had suffered a great loss this time. It was understandable that they would give the Sword Sect some time to rest and reorganize. In this regard, Xiao Chun was naturally happy to have some free time. Watching the Heavenly Sect charge and break through enemy lines from the rear, why not? However, while Xiao Chun was relaxed, Yang Chun on the other side was completely different. He followed his master Tao Ming back to his residence. Once he was at the door, Yang Chun smashed the wooden table in front of him with a punch and shouted angrily, "Damn it! Damn it! Xiao Chun is such a despicable person. Song Xing and the others aren't dead at all. He must have hidden them." Yang Chun was sure that Song Xing and the others weren't dead. There must be a problem. When he thought about how he had not only compensated Xiao Chun with so many treasures, but also how the Heavenly Sect had to act as the vanguard and fight against the evil cultivators, Yang Chun couldn't stop the anger in his heart from rising. Complete defeat. This time, Yang Chun was indeed defeated by Xiao Chun without the slightest ability to fight back. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 23:38. Looking at the enraged Yang Chun, Tao Ming snorted coldly with a gloomy expression. Who can you blame? You can only blame your own stupidity for jumping into someone else's trap without even realizing it. Along the way, Tao Ming also believed Yang Chen's words. Song Xing and the others were probably still alive, but who would believe all this? The other sovereigns would definitely not believe the one-sided words of this master and disciple. Hearing his honored master scolding, Yang Chun did not dare to refute this time. Indeed, he could only blame himself for being too stupid and falling into Xiao Chen's trap. However, when he thought about how Katian sect would have to be the vanguard and would definitely suffer heavy losses, Yang Chun was unwilling to accept this. Xiao Chun was clearly trying to weaken Katian's sect's strength, and Yang Chun could guess his purpose even if he used his toes to think. It was obviously to prepare for the destruction of Katian's sect in the future. Now that everyone was facing the evil path cultivators, they could only choose to join forces. However, once the battle between the righteous and evil paths ended, the Sword Sect and Katian sect would definitely fight. At that time, if Katian sect suffered heavy losses in the battle between the righteous and evil paths, what would they use to fight against the Sword Sect? Xiao Chun had already begun to plan how to destroy the Sword Sect, which made Yang Chun angry and nervous at the same time. He did not want to fight to the death with the evil path cultivators, but this was the decision of the sovereigns. If Yang Chun did not follow it, it would be equivalent to offending all the forces in the Great Thousand World, including Tenzu. Yang Chun was angry, unwilling, and helpless. At this time, he could only look at Tao Ming. Meeting Yang Chen's gaze, Tao Ming, who was sitting on the main seat, also had a cold expression, but he said coldly, "Junwuya, Xiao Chun, if you want to destroy my Katian sect like this, you must be dreaming. This king will not let you succeed." Tao Ming's eyes were filled with coldness. Upon hearing his words, Yang Chun was stunned. Then he asked expectantly, "Master, do you have a way?" That brat Xiao Chun wants to borrow the strength of the evil path to weaken our heavenly sect. He wants to wait until the battle between the righteous and the evil path to destroy the Sword Sect in one fell swoop. What wishful thinking! You should know that all of this is only possible if the Great Thousand World is victorious. If the battle between the righteous and the evil path ends and the evil path wins, what will Xiao Chun use to destroy our heavenly sect? Tao Ming coldly snorted and said, even if Xiao Chun wanted to destroy the Katian sect, it was impossible for him to do so at this time. Moreover, all of Xiao Chen's plans had a prerequisite, which was that the Great Thousand World had to defeat the evil martial artists and obtain victory. But what if there was a battle between good and evil, and the victorious side was the evil warriors? At that time, the Sword Sect wouldn't even be able to protect themselves, so how would they be able to destroy the heavenly sect? Hearing Tao Ming's words, Yang Chun was taken aback at first, but he quickly realized the meaning behind Tao Ming's words. His expression changed instantly, and he looked at Tao Ming nervously. "Master, you're thinking of..." From Tao Ming's words, Yang Chun could clearly tell that he wanted to rely on the evil warriors. This caused Yang Chun to become nervous. As one of the top 10 Lingtian sects in the Great Thousand World, if the Katian sect really relied on the evil path, they would definitely become the public enemy of the entire Great Thousand World. Looking at Yang Chen's nervous expression, Tao Ming immediately scolded him angrily. "Useless. Now that things have come to this, do you still have any other way? Xiao Chun is pressing on step by step without leaving any way out. Do you expect me to wait for my death obediently? Since Xiao Chun doesn't show any mercy, then don't blame me for not showing mercy." It was true that Tao Ming wanted to side with the evil warriors, but the real reason was not because of Xiao Chun, as he had mentioned, but because of Junwuya. Yang Chen might not have a complete understanding of Junwuya's strength, but Tao Ming was very clear. To put it bluntly, regardless of whether Xiao Chen's plan succeeded or not, once the Sword Sect and the Katian sect went to war, the Katian sect had no chance of winning. Because Tao Ming couldn't stop Junwuya, the Katian sect had no chance of winning at all. Junwia was like a sharp sword hanging over the Katian sect's head, and Tao Ming didn't have the slightest ability to deal with this sharp sword that could take his life at any time. Therefore, relying on the evil path seemed to be Tao Ming's only choice. Only by helping the evil path win the war between the good and evil and killing Junwia, the Katian sect, and Tao Ming would they be truly safe. In Tao Ming's opinion, Xiao Qin's little tricks were actually not worth mentioning. The only one who really made him wary, or even afraid, was Jun Wuya. Perhaps even Jun Wuya himself didn't expect that he could make Tao Ming so terrified that he would even choose to rely on the evil path to save his life. Siding with the evil path was definitely a huge decision. Even Yang Qin couldn't help but be shocked when he heard Tao Ming's words. Unfortunately, Tao Ming had already made his decision, and Yang Qin had no way to change it. He could only choose to obey. Unaware of Tao Ming's decision, after resting for 2 days, the side of the Great Thousand World launched another attack on the Tianwu Road. According to the previous discussion between the sovereigns, the Sword Sect would no longer participate in the following battle, and the Katian Sect would continue to act as the vanguard. In 2 days, many experts of the Katian Sect had also arrived at the Tianwu Road. After all, the decision of the sovereigns was very clear. This time, the Katian sect could no longer hold back and had to go all out to act as the vanguard. Therefore, Yang Shun could only transfer many experts of the Katian sect to the Tianwu Road through the space passage. With the arrival of many experts of the Katian sect, a new round of attacks began, and the Katian sect naturally bore the brunt of the attack at the forefront. Moreover, regarding the task of being the vanguard, Yang Chun didn't play any tricks this time and seemed to be faithfully carrying out the decision of the sovereigns. However, this was only on the surface. Secretly, Tao Ming had already sent a deputy sect leader of the Katian sect to secretly go to the depths of the Flame Wind realm to find Purple Snake and the other evil masters to discuss the matter of the betrayal. In order to allow the deputy sect leader to arrive at the Wood Spirit sect, where Purple Snake and the others were as soon as possible, Tao Ming deliberately gave the Katian sect space spirit ship to the deputy sect leader. Originally, it would have been best for Tao Ming to go personally for such an important matter, but there was no other way. Tao Ming's identity was too special. As a sovereign, Tao Ming's every move was naturally watched by many people. If Tao Ming went personally or suddenly disappeared at this time, it would definitely arouse suspicion. Therefore, Tao Ming could only leave the matter to the deputy sect leader. On the surface, he asked Yang Chun to faithfully carry out the decision of the sovereigns, but secretly, Tao Ming had already sent people to discuss the matter of the betrayal with Purple Snake and the other evil masters. Seeking collection, seeking monthly votes, seeking recommendation. Chapter 2339. No one had noticed that Tao Ming had betrayed the Great Thousand World and joined the camp of the Evil Path. After all, Tao Ming was an emperor and held a high position in the Great Thousand World. Who would have thought that Tao Ming would betray the Great Thousand World? The attack on the Tianwu continent had already begun, with the Katian sect as the vanguard. The other major forces had also sent people to participate in the battle. Only the Sword Sect was happy to be idle at this time. Xiao Chun was naturally more than happy to do so. However, just as the Great Thousand World launched a fierce attack on the Tianwu Road, on the other side, the deputy lord of the Katian sect finally arrived at the Wood Spirit sect in the spatial spirit boat given by Tao Ming. The former Wood Spirit sect had now become the headquarters of the Evil Path, and all the evil sovereigns were here. Hearing that the deputy sect leader of the Katian sect had come, Zishi smiled and said to Qi Mei, "Katian sect, interesting." After officially declaring war with the Vast Thousand World, the evil Dao cultivators had naturally investigated the current situation of the Vast Thousand World. Even if they did not know the 10 great Ling Tian sects like the back of their hands, they at least had a rough understanding of them. Both sides were in the midst of war, but a deputy sect leader of the Katian sect had taken the initiative to visit. Moreover, he had come alone. It seemed that he had hidden this from the other forces of the Great Thousand World. With a somewhat playful smile on his face, Zishi ordered someone to bring the deputy sect leader over. He did not inform the other evil sovereigns. Now that Yin Tong was in seclusion to recuperate, Zishi was in charge of all matters of the evil path. It could not be helped. After all, Zishi was second only to Yin Tong. The other evil sovereigns did not object. They wanted to see what the deputy sect leader of the Katian sect wanted, or rather, what the person behind him wanted. Soon, the deputy sect leader of the Katian sect was brought in front of Zishi. Of course, Chimei was also present. Facing two evil sovereigns, it would be a lie to say that the deputy sect leader of the Katian sect was not nervous. One had to know that evil sovereigns were existences on the same level as emperors. Moreover, compared to emperors, evil sovereigns were obviously more cruel and murderous. These evil path cultivators were temperamental, and no one knew when they would suddenly go on a rampage. Therefore, in front of Zishi and Chimei, this heavenly sect vice sect master suppressed the fear in his heart and bowed with a pale face. Junior greets senior. He had no choice. If he were to be arrogant in front of the evil lord, he would be courting death. Hearing this, Zishi smiled with a calm expression. Right now, both sides are at war. As the deputy sect leader of the Heavenly Gate, why have you come here alone? As he spoke, the smile on Zishi's face became even more bewitching. Hearing this, the Heavenly Sect's deputy sect leader did not dare to conceal anything. He immediately told Zishi the reason for his visit. This vice sect lord had received Tao Ming's orders and had specially come here to convey that Tao Ming was willing to join Xie Dao's side and become an evil sovereign. Of course, Tao Ming also had his own requirements. When Zishi heard that Tao Ming wanted to accompany the Great Thousand Realms and submit to the evil Dao, a brilliant light flashed in his eyes. However, he still spoke without batting an eyelid. This is strange. As a sovereign of the Great Thousand World, Tao Ming wants to join us? Are you sure I didn't hear wrongly? No. Junior's words are not false. Hearing this, the Heavenly Sect's deputy sect leader hurriedly nodded and replied. Then, he told Zishi about the grudge between the Heavenly Sect and the Sword Sect. The reason was because of Jun Wuya's strength, which forced Tao Ming to betray the Great Thousand World and submit to the evil Dao. Tao Ming had sufficient reason to betray the Great Thousand World, because if he did not, he would still die. After hearing the words of the Coiling Heaven Sect's vice sect master, Zishi chuckled and said, so that's how it is. However, since Tao Ming is the Coiling Heaven Sect's old ancestor, if he were to side with us evil warriors, what would happen to the rest of your Coiling Heaven Sect? Naturally, they will all join the evil Dao. Hearing this, the deputy sect leader respectfully replied, Tao Ming was the ancestor of the Heavenly Sect. If he betrayed the Great Thousand World, then everyone in the Heavenly Sect could only betray them. As for those who did not listen, they would be killed. This was something that Tao Ming had decided on long ago. Obviously, Tao Ming had thought of everything. In order to smoothly be accepted by the evil Dao, Tao Ming had specially presented a valuable gift, which was the Heavenly Sect's spatial spirit boat. When the Heavenly Sect's deputy sect leader took out the spatial spirit boat and said that it was Tao Ming's gift to Zishi, Zishi's smile became even brighter. It seems Tao Ming has already thought of everything. All right, let's put away the spatial spirit boat. If such a precious treasure suddenly disappeared, wouldn't that raise suspicions? Furthermore, since Brother Tao Ming is so sincere, my corrupt path will naturally also show her sincerity. No matter what, Tao Ming was still a venerable emperor and could be said to be in existence on the same level as Zishi. Since Tao Ming had taken the initiative to join the evil Dao, Zishi naturally would not disrespect him. Moreover, Tao Ming's joining would be of great help to the evil Dao. After confirming that Tao Ming did not seem to be lying, Zishi's attitude toward the Heavenly Sect's deputy sect leader became somewhat more polite. However, it was obviously impossible for him to join the evil Dao so easily and gain Zishi's trust. Zishi paused for a moment before continuing. Since Tao Ming has already made his decision, help me tell Brother Tao Ming that the evil Dao welcomes him very much. However, the current situation is complicated. Since Brother Tao Ming has chosen the evil Tao, then there are some things that need to be discussed at length. For the time being, ask Brother Tao Ming not to expose himself and continue to stay in the Great Thousand World Alliance. As for the battle on the Tianwu continent, ask Brother Tao Ming to delay it for some time. In short, do everything you can to delay it. Zixi meaning was very clear. Let Tao Ming continue to stay in the Great Thousand World Alliance as a spy. Firstly, they could see if Tao Ming really wanted to join the evil Dao. Secondly, they could make better use of Tao Ming's existence. After all, compared to a direct betrayal, letting Tao Ming continue to hide was obviously more effective. Hearing Zixi's words, the Heavenly Sect's deputy sect leader did not dare to refuse. He immediately nodded in agreement, but still said that he needed to ask Tao Ming for instructions. After all, in front of Zixi and Qi Mei, the deputy sect leader was very clear that what he had to show was enough loyalty. Therefore, in front of the two of them, the Heavenly Sect's deputy sect leader directly contacted Tao Ming through a voice transmission talisman. He told Tao Ming exactly what Zixi had said and waited for Tao Ming to make a decision. Request collection, request monthly votes, request recommendation. Chapter 2340. In the Great Thousand World, in the temporary encampment of the Katian sect, the Katian sect was already deep in the Tianwu continent due to their role as the vanguard. Furthermore, because of the request of the emperors, the Katian sect could no longer hold back. Even the ancestor, Tao Ming, had to take action. With an emperor like Tao Ming leading the way, the Katian sect was naturally unstoppable. Therefore, in just a few days, the Katian sect had already taken down many important checkpoints in the Tianwu continent. However, at this moment, in the temporary encampment of the Katian sect, in Tao Ming's room, a ray of light entered the space between his eyebrows. Needless to say, this was a voice transmission talisman sent by the deputy sect leader of the Wood Spirit sect. After knowing the contents of the voice transmission talisman, Tao Ming slowly opened his eyes, and the corners of his mouth unconsciously curled into a sneer. These evil sovereigns are all very shrewd. Purple Snake wanted him to continue to stay in the Great Thousand World as a spy. This clearly meant that he did not completely trust him. After all, if he continued to stay in the Great Thousand World, even if he was pretending to side with the evil path, it would not affect them in the slightest. He knew very well what Purple Snake was thinking, but Tao Ming had no choice. Because facing the pressure of Jun Wuya, Tao Ming knew that he could only rely on the evil path to survive. Therefore, even though he was very upset, Tao Ming still sent a message to the vice sect master of the Wood Spirit sect. He concisely said that he agreed to Zixi's request and would try his best to stall for time on the Tianwu road. In the Wood Spirit sect, after receiving Tao Ming's reply, the deputy sect leader of the Katian sect also conveyed Tao Ming's words to Purple Snake. Hearing this, Purple Snake said with a smile, "Good, Brother Tao Ming is very righteous. Don't worry, in the future, Brother Tao Ming will be my comrade. The evil path will definitely not let Brother Tao Ming down." Tao Ming agreed without hesitation, and Purple Snake naturally said with a smile. After all, regardless of whether the two sides fully trusted each other, they had to at least get along well. With their own thoughts, Tao Ming and Purple Snake reached a preliminary agreement. Tao Ming could be considered to have one foot in the evil path's camp. Of course, if he wanted the evil path's complete approval and trust, it wouldn't be a simple matter. Tao Ming himself knew this. After reaching an agreement with the evil warriors, the situation in the Heavenly Gate also changed. Under Tao Ming and Yang Chen's deliberate arrangements, the Heavenly Gate's attacks on the Tianwu Road began to suffer setbacks, and the progress of the war also entered stalemate. Violet Snake wanted to stall for time. As for Tao Ming, in order to successfully join the corrupt path, he had no choice but to comply. Not many people in the Heavenly Gate knew that Tao Ming and his disciple had betrayed the Great Thousand World and joined the evil Dao. Tao Ming and Yang Chen did not intend to tell him the truth. After all, The heavenly sect was a native force of the great wide world. Many people were full of love for the great wide world. It would be difficult for them to betray the great wide world. Therefore, Tao Ming did not intend to make his betrayal of the great wide world public until the last moment. The war was in a stalemate. As the vanguard, the heavenly gate was unable to move forward for several days. However, with an emperor like Tao Ming personally taking action, and the evil warriors did not have any evil sovereigns to stop them. Logically speaking, this was very strange. The war should not have been so difficult. 5 days passed. Compared to the initial irresistible force, the heavenly gate could now be described as having a hard time moving forward. This change gradually attracted the attention of others. In the Sword Sect's ancestral land, Xiao Chun was sitting in the courtyard with Gu Lingyao, Tian Yu, and Hongxiu accompanying him. As soon as he received a letter, Xiao Chun muttered to himself with a puzzled expression. This shouldn't be. Seeing Xiao Chun muttering to himself with a puzzled expression, Gu Lingyao also asked curiously, "Husband, what shouldn't be?" Faced with Gu Lingyao's inquiry, Xiao Chun did not conceal the contents of the letter and truthfully told the 3 women the contents of the letter. Hearing Xiao Chun's words, the 3 women also spoke one after another. That's right. Logically speaking, without the evil sovereigns taking action, the heavenly gate should not be having such a hard time. That's right. I think the heavenly gate is up to something again. The 3 women all felt that the heavenly gate was noble. Otherwise, with Tao Ming personally taking action and without the evil sovereign's obstruction, the battle should not have been so difficult. Hearing the 3 women's words, Xiao Chun also nodded. Things were a little strange. The heavenly gate's actions were obviously a problem. Xiao Chun had already noticed the abnormality of the heavenly gate. On the other side, Jun Wuya and the other emperors also noticed this. At this time, in Jun Wuya's residence, Jun Wuya and Dan Qingyang were sitting opposite each other. Dan Qingyang's expression was not very good as he said, "Brother Wuya, what do you think Tao Ming is trying to do? After so many days, the heavenly gate has only advanced 100 miles. There must be something wrong with this." Dan Qingyang was obviously a little displeased with Tao Ming. After all, the heavenly Wu continent was decided by the emperors together. At this time, Tao Ming was still delaying like this. It was really a little ignorant of the big picture. Chapter 2341. Jun Wuya and the other 3 were in charge of the battle on the heavenly Wu continent. Purple Snake and the other evil sovereigns had yet to appear. Logically speaking, the battle on the heavenly Wu continent should have ended very quickly without Purple Snake and the other evil sovereigns taking action. However, the situation was the complete opposite. Jun Wuya and Dan Qingyang were not the only ones who were puzzled by Tao Ming's abnormal behavior. Even Yin Litian, who had always been on his side, felt the same way. Otherwise, he would not have taken the initiative to look for Jun Wuya and Dan Qingyang. Yin Litian was not on good terms with Jun Wuya and the others. Of course, this was because of Li Xiao, but in any case, Yin Litian knew what was more important and what was more important. Now that they were facing a great enemy, Yin Litian would definitely not take the entire Great Thousand World lightly. Therefore, after noticing Tao Ming's strange behavior, Yin Litian repeatedly sent Tao Ming messages. Unfortunately, Tao Ming did not reply at all. Jun Wuya did not say much after hearing Yin Litian's words. He even personally brewed a cup of tea for Yin Litian. Then he said calmly, "I think we should go and take a look at Tao Ming personally. Yin Litian, you have a good relationship with Tao Ming. Why don't you make a trip to the front line?" No one knew what Tao Ming was thinking. Furthermore, he did not reply to any of the messages sent to him. Therefore, Jun Wuya could only send someone to check it out personally. Obviously, the best candidate was Yin Litian. Yin Litian took a sip of tea after hearing Jun Wuya's words. Then, he nodded and said, "That's the only thing we can do now. There's no time to lose. I'll make a move now." Yin Litian immediately stood up and left. The battle on the heavenly Wu continent was very important to the Great Thousand World. There could not be any mistakes. Therefore, Litian attached great importance to it. After watching Litian leave, Dan Xingyang sighed and said, "I have a feeling that things are not that simple." Jun Huiya did not comment on Dan Xingyang's words. While Jun Huiya and the others were suspecting Tao Ming, on the other side, in the sealed land, Zi Shi and the other evil sovereigns were all present. Even Yin Tong, who had been recuperating in seclusion, came out of seclusion and rushed over. The evil sovereigns had gathered at the sealed land for no other reason than Lord Evil God. They had gathered the vital energy of the entire great thousand world to revive Lord Evil God. Now that such a long time had passed and Lord Evil God's body had been successfully reforged, the next step was the most crucial one. Yin Tong said with a grave expression as he took out a palm-sized black jade from his space ring. Back then, the great thousand world thought that the Lord Evil God had been killed. Little did they know that the Lord Evil God had left behind a wisp of his soul, so that he could one day rule the world again. He's Yanz's case. SSSS evil Lord Az's, Tuz's dead. Az's evil God, S now. S the S if this remnant soul could perfectly fuse with the body, then Lord Evil God could be resurrected. After all, there was not much time left for the evil path. Although Tao Ming had been stalling for time on the Tianwu Road, after so long, Tao Ming's actions had probably aroused the suspicions of the other sovereigns. Therefore, he had to revive Lord Cthulhu as soon as possible. Yin Tong immediately crushed the black jade stone. Immediately, a wisp of soul fragment drifted out from the black jade stone and entered the blood-colored light ball. One could vaguely see a physical body floating in the blood-colored ball of light. After the wisp of soul entered the physical body, a blood-colored light shone brightly. Yin Tong and the rest of the evil sovereigns were extremely nervous at this moment. Yin Tong and the other evil sovereigns were extremely nervous. Logically speaking, they had sacrificed the entire flame wind realm to form this physical body, so it should be very powerful. However, Yin Tong and the rest did not dare to guarantee that this physical body could withstand Lord Evil Goddesses. Time passed little by little. A couple of hours later, the physical body within the blood-colored light ball finally opened its eyes slowly. At the beginning, its eyes were void of life. However, they slowly began to focus, after which they swept over Yin Tong and the rest present. As the physical body slowly opened its eyes, the atmosphere seemed to have become much more oppressive. After a long while, the physical body finally spoke. "I'm back." The voice sounded a little weak, but Yin Tong and the rest were overjoyed when they heard this. They immediately cupped their hands and bowed to the middle-aged man. "Greetings, evil sovereign." The middle-aged man nodded slightly in response to Yin Tong and the other evil sovereign's greetings. He asked weakly, "What's the situation now?" "Lord Evil God, the battle between the good and evil has begun once again. The 3 sealed lands have all been plentiful, and we have successfully escaped. However, the top powers of the Great Thousand World have joined forces and are fighting against our evil path martial artists." Hearing this, Yin Tong briefly explained the situation. The evil god was the leader of the evil path and was also the strongest expert. His name was Xie Tian. Hearing Yin Tong's words, Xie Tian said indifferently, "The battle between the good and evil. Huh? I need to go into seclusion to recover and cannot come out for the time being. Everything will wait until I come out." The battle between the good and evil had begun again. Hearing Yin Tong's words, a cold look flashed across Xie Tian's eyes. However, he quickly calmed down and said indifferently, Xie Tian had just been revived and had not completely recovered. It could even be said that he was still very weak, so he needed time to recover. Of course, since he could be revived, it would not be difficult for Xie Tian to do this. Hearing Xie Tian's words, Yin Tong and the rest naturally nodded in agreement. Then, after giving some instructions, Xie Tian let Yin Tong and the rest leave while he went into seclusion to recover. After leaving the sealed lands, Purple Snake suddenly received a message from Tao Ming. These days, Tao Ming had been following Purple Snake's instructions at the same time. Like this, Purple Snake gradually believed in Tao Ming's sincerity. Receiving Tao Ming's message at this time, Purple Snake slightly frowned because the content of the letter was very simple. Things have changed, and I'm afraid of being exposed. Tao Ming felt that he might be exposed. Purple Snake looked at Yin Tong and asked, Tao Ming sent a letter. What should we do? Go and support him. Tao Ming is, after all, an emperor venerable and could be considered useful to the evil path. As for the Tianwu Road, now that Lord Evil God has successfully revived, what's wrong with giving it to the Great Thousand World for now? Yin Tong said, begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 2342. These days, Tao Ming had indeed done a good job in giving orders to the evil path. Moreover, he was an Emperor Realm Master and the old ancestor of the heavenly coiling sect. Him siding with the evil path cultivators was definitely not a bad thing for them. These days, Tao Ming had indeed done a good job in giving orders to the evil path. Moreover, he was an Emperor Realm Master and the old ancestor of the heavenly coiling sect. Him siding with the evil path cultivators was definitely not a bad thing for them. Therefore, after receiving Tao Ming's request for help, Yin Tong did not hesitate to go to his rescue. Since the Lord Evil God had been successfully resurrected, it did not matter if the Tianwu continent was given to the Great Thousand World. As for Tao Ming, it was necessary to help him safely evacuate from the Tianwu continent. Hearing Yin Tong's words, Zishi had the same idea and immediately nodded. Then, Zishi personally led a group of people to the Tianwu continent. A total of 3 evil sovereigns went to the Tianwu continent to help Tao Ming. On the way, Zishi also replied to Tao Ming, telling him that he would arrive one day later and to prepare to evacuate. On the Tianwu continent, in a city called Evergreen City, which was the temporary base of the heavenly coiling sect. At this time, in the original City Lord Mansion, Tao Ming was sitting in his room when he received Zishi's reply. From Zishi's reply, Tao Ming already knew that he did not need to hide anymore. He had to prepare to evacuate. When Zishi and the others arrived, he would leave the Great Thousand World and publicly side with the evil path. However, to evacuate, Tao Ming still needed to make a lot of preparations. First, there were so many people in the heavenly coiling sect. Tao Ming had already thought about it. He could not take all of them with him. After all, there were still some people in the heavenly coiling sect who were extremely loyal to the Great Thousand World. It was impossible for them to side with the evil path. Therefore, Tao Ming only planned to take his confidants with him. As for the other disciples of the heavenly coiling sect, they would be left to fend for themselves. Moreover, he still had to deal with Enlitian. It was because Enlitian had personally come to Evergreen City that Tao Ming sent a message to Zishi. From Enlitian's words, Tao Ming could feel that he was suspicious of him. Even Enlitian had begun to suspect him, let alone the other emperors. That was why Tao Ming had sent a message to Purple Snake, telling him that he was about to be exposed. Tao Ming's eyes were filled with coldness. Immediately after, he gathered Yang Chun and the other vice sect leaders in his room. Tao Ming looked at everyone and said indifferently, "Get ready, we're going to leave. As for the disciples who are loyal to me, you can take them with you. As for the others, let them perish on their own." These people were all Tao Ming's trusted aides. They were naturally loyal to him, so they had long since known that Tao Ming had secretly sided with the corrupt path. When they heard Tao Ming's words, their expressions changed slightly. It was not difficult to tell from Tao Ming's words that he was planning to completely break away from the Great Thousand World and publicly switch sides to the evil path. The few of them had complicated expressions on their faces. After all, if they sided with the evil path martial artists, they would be condemned by everyone. At that time, the entire Great Thousand World would despise them. However, even so, the arrow was already knocked on the bow. Hence, they had no choice but to block it. Everyone nodded in agreement. Tao Ming's main task now was to stabilize Yu Litian. At least, Before Purple Snake and the others arrived, Ulitian could not sense that something was wrong. They secretly started to evacuate. That night, Tao Ming drank with Ulitian. In the courtyard, the two of them sat opposite each other, looking at Tao Ming. Although there was no evidence, Ulitian felt that there was something different about Tao Ming. As for what exactly was different, Ulitian couldn't pinpoint it. The two of them drank in silence. Suddenly, Ulitian seemed to say casually, "Brother Tao Ming, I feel that you've changed." "Oh, is that so? Tell me, how has it changed?" Tao Ming asked with a smile when he heard that. In front of Ulitian, Tao Ming tried his best to hide the fact that he had sided with the evil path. After all, Purple Snake and the others had not arrived yet. If it was exposed now, Tao Ming might not even be able to escape from the Tianwu continent. After all, Jun Wuya and Dan Xingyang were on the Tianwu continent. Once they knew that he had betrayed the Great Thousand World, the three of them would not be merciful to him. Even Ulitian might take action against him. Tao Ming pretended to be calm. However, Ulitian shook his head and said, "I can't put my finger on it. It's just a feeling." As soon as he finished speaking, the two of them fell into silence again. The atmosphere became a little strange. Logically speaking, Tao Ming and Ulitian had a good personal relationship, so this shouldn't be the case. However, this time, the two of them were drinking together, giving Ulitian a feeling of speechlessness. He did not know what to say. Not long after, Ulitian took the initiative to stand up. He looked at Tao Ming and said, "I'll go back first." After saying that, Ulitian walked out of the courtyard. However, just as he stepped out of the courtyard, he stopped and said without turning back, "Brother Tao Ming, I think that no matter what happens, we should focus on the big picture." After saying that, Ulitian walked away without waiting for Tao Ming's reply. Tao Ming's eyes flashed coldly as he looked at Ulitian's back. Based on Ulitian's words, how could Tao Ming not know that Ulitian had sensed that something was wrong? However, Ulitian should not know that Tao Ming had secretly sided with the evil path. Otherwise, Ulitian would not have spoken to Tao Ming in such a manner. Siding with the evil path was a great taboo. It was obvious that Tao Ming had made himself an enemy of the entire Great Thousand World. No matter how good Tao Ming's relationship with Ulitian was, if Ulitian knew about this, he would not remain indifferent. "There's still one more night. I hope you'll be smart," Tao Ming said indifferently as he drank the wine in his cup. Tomorrow, Shi and the others would arrive. At that time, Tao Ming could withdraw from the Tianwu continent and publicly side with the evil path. While Tao Ming was secretly talking, Ulitian, who was supposed to return to his residence, left the city lord's mansion under the cover of the night. Ulitian did not return to his room to rest. Instead, he left the city lord's mansion alone. His motive was self-evident. Ulitian could clearly sense that something was wrong with Tao Ming. He wanted to see what Tao Ming was up to. Therefore, Ulitian secretly went to the residences of the other deputy sect masters of the heavenly sect. Since he could not find any evidence from Tao Ming, Ulitian planned to look for clues from the other deputy sect masters of the heavenly sect. As a sovereign, Ulitian wanted to hide. Other than Tao Ming, few people in the heavenly sect could discover him. Begging for your collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 2343. Under the cover of the night, Ulitian quickly arrived at the residence of one of the vice sect leaders. Unfortunately, he couldn't find a vice sect leader after searching for a while. Under the cover of the night, Ulitian quickly arrived at the residence of one of the vice sect leaders. Unfortunately, he couldn't find a vice sect leader after searching for a while. Obviously, the vice sect leader was not in his residence at this time. After a fruitless search, Ulitian left and went to the residence of the second vice sect leader. However, after going to the residences of several vice sect leaders, Ulitian still could not find a single vice sect leader. It was already late at night, but none of the vice sect leaders seemed to be in their residences. For a moment, Ulitian was even more puzzled. What happened? Yin Litian frowned slightly and murmured softly. Yin Litian's intuition told him that there must be something wrong with Tao Ming, but he could not figure out what the problem was. Although he was unwilling to give up, Yin Litian did not give up and continued to search in the city. In the end, he even went out of the city and went to the dense forest to the west of the city. As a sovereign, Yin Litian's perception was naturally very sharp. When he was searching in the city earlier, Yin Litian felt that there were many faint auras coming from the dense forest to the west of the city. Obviously, there were many people hiding in the dense forest at this time, and it seemed that their strength was not low. Following the auras, Yin Litian hid in the dark and looked at the mysterious crowd gathered in the dense forest in front of him. A strange light flashed in his eyes. At this time, under the cover of the night, the dense forest, which should have been empty, was actually filled with many experts from the heavenly sect. Sect leader Yang Chun, the vice-sect leaders of the heavenly sect, as well as many elders, deacons, and disciples of the heavenly sect, had gathered here one by one. There were at least 20 to 30,000 people. It was obviously unusual for so many people to gather here in the middle of the night. Moreover, after listening to the conversation of the vice-sect leaders, Yin Litian's face became increasingly gloomy. Everyone, when we leave this time, we will be evil martial artists. Since the Great Thousand World cannot accommodate us, we will establish another sect. I firmly believe that under the leadership of the ancestor, our heavenly sect will be restored to its former glory, a deputy sect leader said firmly. The people present were all loyal to Tao Ming. They were also the people who wanted to follow Tao Ming to join the corrupt path. As for the other disciples of the Heavenly Gate, Tao Ming didn't trust them, so he didn't plan on taking them with him. According to Tao Ming's orders, everyone gathered here in the middle of the night. They were waiting for Purple Snake and the evil Dominator to arrive the next day. At that time, they would leave the Tianwu continent and head to the Wood Spirit sect. From this moment on, these people were no longer warriors of the great wide world. Instead, they had become evil warriors. Although some of the people present had complicated expressions, they did not say anything. They were all loyal to Tao Ming. Following Tao Ming was naturally their final choice. However, while they were talking, they didn't realize that there was another person hiding in the darkness. This person was naturally Yin Litian, who had been searching for them all this time. Previously, Yin Litian had always felt that Tao Ming was strange. However, he didn't expect Tao Ming to betray the Great Thousand World and join the corrupt path. This obviously touched everyone's bottom line. Even Yin Litian's eyes flashed with a cold light. He didn't expect Tao Ming to make such a choice. Yin Litian's eyes swept across the many powerhouses from the heavenly sect, and a murderous intent rose in his heart. Although he was at odds with Jun Wuya and his people, and was Li Zhao's mortal enemy, Yin Litian's loyalty to the Great Thousand World was unquestionable. Although there were internal conflicts in the Great Thousand World, Yin Litian would never betray the Great Thousand World. Yin Litian's killing intent rose as he looked at the Heavenly Gate experts. Since they had betrayed the Great Thousand World, Yin Litian naturally couldn't let them live. The coldness in his eyes grew colder. Then, Yin Litian stopped hiding and slowly walked out of the darkness. Because Yin Litian deliberately revealed himself, the people from the Heavenly Gate naturally noticed his presence. One of the Heavenly Gate deputy sect leaders shouted with a gloomy face, "Who is it?" As he spoke, Yin Litian walked out from the darkness. His expression was cold as he swept his gaze across the crowd. "You are all cultivators of the Great Thousand World. How dare you willingly join the corrupt path? No matter what your reasons are, I won't agree to it today. I'll give you one last chance. Repent and be saved, and I can spare your lives." When they saw that it was Yin Litian, Yang Chun, and the other Heavenly Gate deputy sect leaders, faces darkened. They didn't expect Yin Litian to find out. Although there were many of them present, facing an Emperor Master was still a huge pressure. However, as soon as Yin Litian finished speaking, Tao Ming's figure also appeared out of thin air. Tao Ming looked at Yin Litian and said indifferently, "Don't worry about it. You shouldn't be so nosy. If Letian didn't poke his nose into other people's business, Tao Ming wouldn't want to complicate matters and would leave quietly. However, now that Letian had found out, Tao Ming had no choice but to show up. Tao Ming's timely appearance made the people from the Heavenly Gate deputy sect secretly relieved, but it also ignited Letian's anger. Letian looked at Tao Ming and shouted angrily, "Tao Ming, are you crazy? As a sovereign of the great thousand world, how could you fall into the corrupt path? Do you know what this means? This is no longer an internal strife. You're going against the entire great thousand world." Tao Ming sneered in response to Letian's angry shout. "So what? Do I, Tao Ming, have any other way out? Jun Wuya is like a sharp sword hanging over my head. Once the battle between the righteous and corrupt path is over, do you think the sword sect will let me go? Since I'm going to die anyway, why can't I give it my all?" Tao Ming didn't feel that he had done anything wrong. Everything was for the sake of survival and to be able to fight against Jun Wuya. However, after hearing Tao Ming's words, the disappointment on Letian's face deepened. He looked at Letian and shook his head. "Tao Ming, I really don't know if I should say that you're stupid or ignorant. The battle between the Sword Sect and the Heavenly Gate Deputy Sect is just an internal matter of the Great Thousand World. But what about the corrupt path? They're the great enemy of the entire Great Thousand World, or rather, everyone. Now that you've sided with the corrupt path, you're going against heaven's will. Do you understand the consequences?" The cruelty of the corrupt path was obvious to all. Tao Ming had sided with the corrupt path, which was tantamount to standing on the opposite side of the Great Thousand World. This was no longer a crime that could be forgiven with just a few words. Even if Tao Ming wasn't sovereign, it still couldn't be forgiven. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 2344. Letian had always felt that Tao Ming was very strange, but he had never imagined that Tao Ming would betray the Great Thousand World and secretly side with the evil path. One had to know that this was already crossing the bottom line. Even though Yuli Tian and Tao Ming had once stood on the same side, Yuli Tian still wouldn't agree to this. Letian said coldly, "Tao Ming, if you stop now, I can pretend that I didn't see what happened today, and I won't tell anyone. Don't make the same mistake again." Given the relationship between Letian and Tao Ming, Letian could let Tao Ming go this time. However, if Tao Ming insisted on doing things his own way, Letian would obviously not agree. Tao Ming sneered when he heard Letian's words. "Letian, I think you should pretend that you didn't see what happened today, and I can let you go." Tao Ming had obviously made up his mind to side with the evil path, and he didn't hesitate at all. Letian's eyes were filled with killing intent when he saw this. Letian would never agree to Tao Ming betraying the Great Thousand World. Even though they had a good relationship, Letian knew what he had to do when faced with such a big issue. Letian's eyes were filled with killing intent as he looked at Tao Ming and said coldly, "In that case, don't blame me for being impolite." Tao Ming wasn't afraid of Letian's attack at all. Since Letian had found out, Tao Ming couldn't let Letian leave just like that. Otherwise, all his previous efforts would be in vain. Letian and Tao Ming attacked at the same time. Both of them took a step forward and disappeared from where they were standing. At the same time, their fists collided in the sky. The terrifying shock waves from their collision tore the space apart. Both of them didn't hold back in the slightest in their battle. However, in order to avoid affecting the group of Heavenly Sect experts below, Tao Ming still confined the space immediately. The battle between the two Emperor Realm Masters could be described as extremely terrifying, but the Masters of Merging Heaven Sect naturally had no way of intervening in such a battle. Letian had vowed to prevent Tao Ming from joining the corrupt path, while Tao Ming wasn't willing to let Letian leave so easily. As a result, their battle was extremely intense. Amidst the intense battle, Letian was still unwilling to give up. He looked at Tao Ming and said, "Tao Ming, You keep saying that it's because of Jun Wuya that you joined the corrupt path. I guarantee you that even if the battle between the righteous and corrupt paths ends, if the sword sect attacks your heavenly gate, my heavenly pavilion will not stand idly by. Don't be so obstinate. Otherwise, you'll just be digging your own grave. Tao Ming had repeatedly said that he had betrayed the Great Thousand World because of Jun Wuya and the sword sect. Letian didn't understand what Tao Ming meant. What a joke. If I want to leave, do you think you can stop me? Tao Ming's stubbornness made Letian lose his patience completely. Letian naturally didn't believe that Tao Ming alone wanted to keep him here. But as soon as his voice fell, an indifferent voice sounded. Tao Ming naturally can't stop you. But what if the three of us join in? Along with the voice, Violet Snake and the other two evil sovereigns appeared before Letian. Letian's expression changed when he saw the three of them. Then, he shouted at Tao Ming furiously. Tao Ming, you're really hopeless. Tao Ming had already contacted Violet Snake and the other evil sovereigns. Even the evil sovereigns had descended on the heavenly Wu continent. It was clear that everything was premeditated. Tao Ming said indifferently to Letian's shout. Of course, we have to be fully prepared. Brother Tao Ming, let's cut the crap. We don't have much time. Let's kill him and leave, Violet Snake said as soon as Tao Ming's voice fell. The heavenly Wu continent wasn't safe now, so Violet Snake and the others didn't have much time to waste. But since there was such a good opportunity, Violet Snake also had the intention to kill Letian and leave after killing him. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 2347. Tao Ming's betrayal enraged the sovereigns of the Great Thousand World. Even Yin Shun did not continue to speak up for Tao Ming. After all, Tao Ming had crossed everyone's bottom line by turning to the demonic path side, not to mention that he had allowed the demonic path's cultivators to slaughter the heavenly sect's disciples. This made the emperors even more furious and despised him. The news of Tao Ming's betrayal quickly spread throughout the Great Thousand World. Xiao Chun and the others who were on the Tianwu continent also learned about it. At their residence, Xiao Chun, Guling Yao, Tianyu, Hong Xiu, Long Qing, Xin Yuanling, Dao Ju, and Xiao Xiao were sitting together and talking about Tao Ming's betrayal. Dao Ju said with a look of disdain, "What a good-for-nothing. I can't believe he defected to the evil path." Dao Ju had always been fearless. At this time, she did not hide her disdain for Tao Ming. Compared to Dao Ju, Xiao Chun was much calmer. Although Xiao Chun did not expect Tao Ming to betray the Great Thousand World and join the evil path, since it had already happened, it was useless to say anything. However, Tao Ming would probably become the enemy of the entire Great Thousand World in the future. Losing Tao Ming and the Katian sect was indeed a big blow to the Great Thousand World. After all, the Katian sect was one of the 10 great Lingtian sects of the Great Thousand World. Tao Ming's betrayal also made the sovereigns extremely angry. In the end, the sovereigns decided to end the battle on the Tianwu continent as soon as possible and slaughter all the evil path cultivators on the Tianwu continent. For this reason, Xiao Chun and the others could only rush to the front line again. This time, the three sovereigns, Jun Wuya, Letian, and Dan Xingyang, were personally involved. On the Tianwu continent, the Great Thousand World began to attack fiercely. Because there was no evil master, the evil path cultivators could not resist the attacks of Jun Wuya and the other two sovereigns. The Great Thousand World quickly took control of the Tianwu Great Road. Of course, the evil path martial artists on the Tianwu Great Road were all killed, and not a single one was left alive. The Tianwu continent was taken down very smoothly, and the war on the Tianwu continent ended. However, for Shao Chun, there was nothing to be excited about. Since the start of the war, not a single evil venerable had made a move. It seemed like the heavenly Wu continent was deliberately given to the Great Thousand World by the evil path. He didn't know what the corrupt path was planning to do. Giving the Tianwu continent to the Great Thousand World for free was indeed somewhat illogical. Although they had taken down the Tianwu Road, it did not cause any fatal blow to the evil warriors. This naturally made Shao Chun unhappy. However, Shao Chun was not happy at all. On the contrary, he fell into deep thought. With Xie Tian here, Yin Tong and the others were naturally filled with confidence. Moreover, they knew that Xie Tian had a reason to return to the Great Thousand World. That was because Xie Tian's son was also the evil son of the evil path. He was currently sleeping in a forbidden area of the Great Thousand World. In the war between good and evil, Xie Tian knew that it was hard to go against the tide, and the evil path was about to be defeated. In the final moments, Xie Tian used a secret technique to seal his only son, giving him a chance to live. At the same time, Xie Tian's remnant soul was left behind at that time. Now that the war between good and evil had erupted, Xie Tian would definitely go back to release his son. Under Xie Tian's orders, the evil path immediately prepared a counterattack. Although the spatial channel was firmly controlled by the Great Thousand World, so what? They could just directly attack. This was Xie Tian's pride. Even if the emperors of the Great Thousand World tried to stop them, so what? Could they stop them? The evil path's actions could not be hidden from the Great Thousand World. Or it could be said that the evil path side did not want to hide anything and was preparing to counterattack with great fanfare. Very quickly, they noticed the abnormal movements of the evil path's cultivators in the Flame Wind world. They kept gathering in the direction of the spatial channel, clearly preparing to attack. After receiving this news, Tenzu and the emperors made a prompt decision. They immediately withdrew everyone from the Heavenly Wu Road and returned to the spatial channel, preparing to welcome the evil path's counterattack. Shao Chun and the others followed the large group back to the spatial channel. This was the Great Thousand World's headquarters in the Flame Wind world, and also the gathering place of many cultivators in the Great Thousand World. More and more evil path's cultivators began to gather around the spatial channel. Moreover, according to reliable news, Purple Snake, Yin Tong, and the other evil sovereigns had also appeared. It was clear that the evil path side was not bluffing. The Heavenly Wu Road had just been taken away. In the battle on the Heavenly Wu Road, Purple Snake and the other evil sovereigns did not have any intention of making a move other than supporting Tao Ming. It was clear that they had given up on the Heavenly Wu Road. However, this time, the evil path side was aggressive. There must be some unforeseen event. As for the reason for this unforeseen event, the emperors and Tenzu quickly guessed it. They guessed that the evil god Xie Tian had been successfully resurrected. Without Xie Tian, the evil path side would definitely not choose to counterattack so openly. In the previous battle, the evil path side already knew the strength of Jun Wuya. If they did not have any preparations or trump cards, they would not have rashly launched an attack like this.